Yeah, Elsa from, well, you probably haven't watched the Disney cartoons, but.
Updating. I stuck in Gilbert Grape, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you know, I think I did truly enjoy the Frozen series. On a side note, I want to make note, this is my favorite color.
Oh,
This is fortuitous.
I picked this one.
And look, you're wearing it.
I know, that's why I picked it, because this color. We're gonna give Don khaki, because, you know, Ralph will.
I'm just an earth tone guy.
You're not a tone guy. I had a pair of coveralls like that. He complained every time I gave them to my daughter. She's happy, he's happy, because he didn't have his army green. It was pretty great.
I am fascinated by the chair's color.
Well, you just pick ties.
He does wear pink ties. Actually, you're right. He does wear pink ties.
He has daughters.
Yeah.
He has daughters. We don't have any pink in it,
Oh,
in our house at all, because, and I feel so sorry for my wife, because,
She's not a pink person.
well, I mean, she probably was at some point, but.
so my husband, when my kids were younger,
Now, let me text him.
when my kids were younger, the girls especially, everything came with glitter. And so the laundry would be done and then like you'd open the laundry and glitter would pop out. And so he would go to work with glitter in his beard, glitter in his hair, glitter on his face, glitter on his arm hairs, like it was everywhere. And he owned it.
I never had to deal with glitter. I just had to deal with those tennis shoes that you could smell from down the block.
Not good smelling.
Oh, you obviously didn't.
My kids were stores, I mean, they were something.
How you doing?
Yeah.
And we could.
Hey, are you able to make?
So
the-
my daughter,
meeting? We're at
this
the-
whole
yeah.
New York experience and dancing and everything, she got these
Yeah.
dance shoes.
It's early.
And they came with little ballet slipper, smelly good thing
Okay.
inserts that go into the dance shoes.
Were you,
I'm like,
are you gonna be, are you out?
That's how they make things smell better. It's like hanging a tree inside the shoe.
Okay, perfect. I'll let you know.
I was like, could I have 20?
Yeah, thank you. No, no worries. Okay. All right. Sounds good. Thanks.
So he gave me
So he-
permission to use his
I
colors.
was gonna log in. Oh, are you trying to switch out of your phone?
No, I was just gonna have all the colors.
Oh, there you go.
Sorry,
Okay.
but you could switch. If you prefer green to orange, does it matter?
No.
Whatever makes you happy. No, I mean, does it matter to the overall good of the order or?
What the color?
I can get you under the table. That's, no, I'm.
There you go. You might have to switch your little tag, your tag color. There you
Gotta
go.
do that, gotta.
That
gotta
way.
keep my tags.
There you go. Okay, are we ready to go? So work sessions are an opportunity for board members to discuss issues informally with staff and invited guests. The board encourages members of the public to attend work sessions and listen to the discussion, but there's generally no opportunity for public comment. Members of the public wishing to address the board are welcome to do so during the board's regularly scheduled meetings. So we have two items on the work session. First is board discussion regarding the role of commissioners and chair.
Got a handout.
And we had a handout, so
Oh, I thought you said hand up.
as we know, and I think that the staff was able to kind of prepare this for us to really kind of delineate the duties of the commissioner and chair. And certainly these are prescribed to us by the charter and by the rules, and so have people had an opportunity to kind of review this? How would you like to proceed? Do you want to go through these items or just
But I just talk generally.
Sure.
Because I'm the one who pushed for, I'm the one who pushed for this, right?
correct?
Because I looked at that and I thought, well, that's really great. That's the minimum requirements. I'm one of these kind of people who likes to think outside of the box and how can we be creative and how can we do more? Here's what I would say impelling me. When I was involved with the forestry stuff, I saw what was coming in terms of what could happen to our local economy. I was also involved in a whole bunch of emergency preparedness stuff. So I saw economic challenges to the tax base. I saw catastrophic events happening at some point yet to be determined, you know, because Mother Nature will let us know, but other trends that were also the natural world. So we had legal stuff coming at us with economic impact. We had natural world stuff coming at us. And I always looked at what could I do, what could we do in addition to whatever the staff was doing. Is it enough? How does it leave us prepared to respond to these challenging circumstances? Because I could see them coming. I don't know how to celebrate the goodness that's happened and rejoice in the growth of our organizational capacity, our interpersonal relationships, just the whole improvements in county governance. When I look at it as a member of the governing body of Clatsop County, I see the charter says this will happen, that doesn't happen, but it didn't say you can't spend full time at this and go all over the state of Oregon and beyond to try and promote the well-being of the people in the place of Clatsop County. I don't know how to integrate my work effectively with the work that the other commissioners are doing. I don't know how to integrate my work effectively with that. But it occurred to me, we're dealing with challenging circumstances. We're going to have more challenging circumstances. I mean, in every liaison we have, we're hearing about those challenges. So I thought, well, if we talked about it here together, we could look at ways to communicate more so we could understand each other better, work better as a team, educate each other, cooperate better, work more effectively with that, basically do a better job for the people in Clatsop County. So that's what motivated me to ask for this. That's what I wanted. Other than that, I don't know what to say.
Well, I mean, we can always strive to improve in everything that we do. You were right to say the thing about celebrate, because I think we really do have a lot to celebrate. Celebrate the job that the staff and our administration has done over the last year. Celebrate the way that this commission has worked together. And yes, we are busy. There's a lot going on, but there's a lot that we've accomplished. So I'm all for trying to make improvements in what we're doing, but I'm very pleased with what we've done.
Yes, and yeah, not yes, but yes.
I have a suggestion. We all have these meetings individually with our different liaison committees and our different liaison groups. And we do a very small liaison update at these meetings. But I'm just wondering if there's a better method to share our information, very similar to a Friday update of our county manager, but liaison summary. But I don't know how to do that and still maintain public meeting law. We don't want to have meetings via sharing information, but also kind of streamline the sharing of information, because we set our goals, obviously, every year, and we had our shift towards all of those goals every year. But I really, unless I show up and witness your meetings that you have in other liaison groups, I have no idea, like, the full body of what you're doing. And so maybe there's a way moving forward that we can figure out how to communicate that to each other so that we're all on the same page. We can share talking points and basically have a little bit more coordinated muscle movement when it comes to really big issues that are impacting our community. That's my idea.
Yeah.
I don't know how that would look or work, but ideas.
I like that.
I don't think I could have said that better. I just completely agree. It's very ironic. I feel like when was the last time I was in this room? I don't even remember.
Probably a month ago.
It's been fall meeting time.
Mhm.
I've spent 6 weeks at 3 different conferences and, tonight I brought in a whole huge package to share with everybody.
Yeah,
Some of the things and some of the groups are better than others. For instance, I have a whole thing to talk about tonight, which is the legislation that happened out of Newport that staff has already been working on, but I feel is very important for the board to know about. That I picked up from the Parks and Rec Committee.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And
It's the
it's-
lawsuit,
yeah.
Fields in Newport.
Yeah, it's really, I mean,
Recreational
and
immunity.
Yeah.
it's just huge. And so I brought some materials that you all could read
Good.
that really kind of talks about what happened, et cetera, and what we had to then deal with for our parks. And that's a major issue.
Mhm.
I mean, I had read about it, I think, in the newspaper, but I hadn't, I got a lot of good, so, just some other stuff from all the meetings that some of it doesn't require explanation, it just says here.
yeah,
One of the conferences I went to did a wonderful thing, the workforce development conference I went through. After the conference was over, they actually put out kind of a synopsis of all of the presentations and everything. And I thought that was just terrific. I mean, it gives you, I mean, for instance, there was a big thing about AI, and I didn't expect there to be anything about AI at a workforce conference,
yeah.
but woo, it was huge. And so that kind of sharing is just terrific, I think, and I happen to have this time, happen to have. So,
What I'm
yeah.
hearing, I'm sorry, David, but I was hearing from you that we're constricted because of the public meeting law, about
Mhm.
how we share. But can we work through the county manager? Can we work through TJ? Are there other avenues in which we can do exactly what you're saying and just share, hey, I've learned this at this conference, I'd like for the rest of my commission.
Yeah,
And then you can do it, not necessarily just at this meeting, but in another method.
A system, because I think like this is the kind of administrative analysis that I used to do. This is why I love charts. Because it has dimensions and variables, but it takes time and effort. So if we want to do what the charter says we'll do, which is report on our liaison activity, because it says we'll do it, but we never really grappled with it, at least in the 9 years I've been on the county board of commissioners, because we talk about things, but that's not a systematic, comprehensive, really useful way of integrating our experience into the way the county is able to do business, able to get more resources or use the resources we have to better impact or to create better relationships, any of that stuff. It takes time, it takes a special skill set, it takes money to buy that unless we just have forms we fill out and submit to somebody and then they're part of the board packet. I mean, it's a time, because believe me, one of the reasons I got elected is because I want to have to fill out forms. But how do we share the information in a way that's used, in a way that nourishes more organizational effectiveness, which helps the people in the place? How do we do that?
Well, and just if I could,
Yeah, sorry.
This was an interesting afternoon for me because I was home the whole time. I've been home almost all day, I guess. And I got several phone calls today about our packet tonight. People who had seen the packet and had questions about it. And there were several things that I couldn't answer because I didn't know what was going on. And so I just felt it was, and I think that we haven't, for instance, Commissioner Banks had a wonderful op-ed this week, a wonderful one. And it was so complete and so really, Courtney, it was just wonderful.
thank you.
And, but I don't agree with a lot, not of what you said, because everything you said was completely factual, but I have another approach.
Mhm.
And I realized, you know what, people are talked about this.
Mhm.
We've never really talked about this. And so there are occasions, yeah, so yes. I mean, I couldn't agree more.
That's better teamwork when we do that.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think we all want that. And then the question becomes, how do we agree to do that? What should it mean? And how do we have the time? Because we've got, I mean, you and I are retired, so we tend to do things. You're working 2 jobs, 2 full-time jobs as our forestry rep, and your paying job, you and Commissioner Fioka working full-time jobs. The 3 of you all have families with what, 2, 3, 4 children. I mean, that's a different time allocation and priority. How do we make it efficient and effective and still have the kinds of discussion that yield better teamwork, which is going to result in better public policy?
Mhm. Mhm.
I don't know. Anybody have a magic? No. But I think, so when I circle back to when I first entered this position, it was after a lot of upheaval in the newspaper. I think a lot of broken relationships, a lot of chaos within the organization. And one thing I can say is that is not something that's occurring now. And I think that how do we keep that going? For a longer period of time, because I feel like we've been very successful in accomplishing our goals that we set before ourselves. And so yeah, I just want to keep the ball rolling, make it a bigger and bigger, and accomplish more and more, because looking at our strategic plan, I'm kind of excited for what we're going to accomplish next year. So
And two, and two.
But here's, okay, and not to say what, I've been doing a lot of work with ODOT as the ACT chair and this jurisdictional transfer advisory committee and all of that. We have these plans, strategic plans, work plans, all of that, lots of collaboration. Boom, all of a sudden, oh, look, here are the king tides. Highway 101 is closed south of Seaside. Oh, whoops. No, Leanne, you cannot go to the dentist in Warrenton because you can't get there and back. And if you couldn't get your garage door open because there's no electricity. And if you did that, you would still have no internet to attend the meetings. So there are things that interrupt our people's capacity to function that we don't necessarily include in these. I don't know how to balance that need for a more immediate, acute responsiveness. Because this is good, mostly, I would say, chronic or ongoing kinds of things. I want our work to magnify that work, to really turbocharge it and get those resources and have those outcomes, and do it in a way that we're a good team together that explore our differences and our commonalities, give the staff, I would say, hope and inspiration. Can we ever praise you enough? I don't know, but hope, you know what I mean? We wanna do our job so that it's easier for you and everybody you supervise to do their job. I'm pretty sure that's the reason every single one of us got elected. And when we falter at that, we wish we hadn't, but we want to do better. So we're looking at helping each other do better so we can be that elected governing body leadership. That's what I think.
Mhm.
Okay, what do we do?
Well, I think we're all part of a bigger team here, and I think we have been very smart in hiring the county manager that has been taking care of the daily operations in a very good manner. Our job is to do the strategic plan, to set policy, and to support the rest of our team. And we are run by a professional staff that does a fantastic job. And I'm so grateful. That's what we need, and that's our role. And I think that it's functioning as it should.
Would you like me to throw out some thoughts real quick? So I certainly, I mean, I have said this to some of the board members that I've spoken to today, but this 2-pager is really just the box that the county board works in. And so then within that box though is then performance, and performance has a lot of components to it. But at the core of the components of performance is just communication and sharing information and sharing relevance and having a platform to have conversations that lead to hopefully consensus. I mean, through our board rules, I mean, the whole goal of the board is to get to consensus and have a process that people feel honored at as you go through that, whether you agree completely or not. And so I think that there's some things we can do, because I think part of the challenge is there's a lot that happens every day. And there's some things that your board are taking care of. And sometimes in taking care of it, you need to take care of some of the tailing parts of it. And then there are other things that are such an immediate need. Sometimes staff has to just take care of it and then communicate to your board or to the public about what is happening. And I don't think that's necessarily going to change, because that's how quick things move. I think though that one opportunity we have, and there's a couple of components to it, is one, it seems like we could set aside regular time for your board to feed me some of the topics you would like to talk about that could be coming from your liaison roles, could be coming from what you've read and, or read on the internet or anything else, where every board meeting we set aside time, you send me what your list is. We can gather some of the materials and get them out to the board beforehand so that there's background information for those conversations. And it could be on really any issue, but that may create a little bit more resonance to the updates and from the liaison roles, and allow you to decide, because you're dealing with a lot of different things and not everything may percolate to a moment where you need to talk to the whole board about it or educate the whole board about an issue that you're dealing with. But there will be some that percolate. And right now we're not really wired to do that. And so one option is we just kind of reimagine what part of our work session is to give your board time to do that. So I'm just thinking of childcare. I mean, it could be the childcare is an issue. Chair Coelho, Commissioner Banks want us to take a few minutes. They have some materials they want to share with the board. We send them to the board. We make them available to the public. And then as part of that meeting, we talk about that. It could be workforce development. It could be an affordable housing issue. It could be anything. And then if it's like a big timber issue, then we could set aside enough time to really talk about it. But
They would need hours.
so I'm thinking that might be one way of at least starting to approach the timeliness of some of that, and don't put the onus just on the board to have to bring it up and educate during a board update, because that's not enough time. It's not probably the right venue. So I'm just throwing these out as ideas.
I appreciate that.
You can tell me that's not going to work.
No,
The other thing, the other thing we could do, and we've talked about this before, is that every board member has their own webpage. And they're not, some are more actively being used than others, but one option is that for your liaison responsibilities, we work with you to provide links to all of those different liaison roles. And then so then there would be access to the minutes, and we could even provide a little update to what's happened at those meetings that you'd have to help us provide, but staff can also help,
that's
do it so that there's,
At those meetings.
yeah,
too.
so that there's more currency. And so then if somebody wants to go and see what the liaison roles are, and they could have links to, to the organizations, and they would have updates of what is the most germane things happening in those areas. I mean, just some ideas, but I mean, I think both of those are things we could do. It might be a step in the right direction. It may not be sufficient, but it would be a step in the right direction, and then we can recalibrate off of that. But I do hear you that it's it's the ability to communicate more timely, and a little bit more in-depth on those issues where the board's helping set the agenda on what those issues are. It's not staff setting the agenda. Because as we all know, with your liaison assignments, there are staff there oftentimes, but sometimes you're the one that really knows what is happening. And so I think we can help support you to have a venue, both with the board and more publicly, to talk about those issues. So just a couple thoughts, and those came off the top of my head, so don't judge me for that, so.
See, Commissioner Toyoka, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Good evening, everyone. Sorry for that. I had a hard time getting on. Thank you, Teresa, for getting it all squared away. I kind of reiterate some of the things that the county manager said and Commissioner Quiles. I think it's all about communication. It truly is. No matter how we figure out, the best way. I know in our own business, we have basically shared documents so we can keep everyone in the loop and informed. And then it's that next man up theory. If I'm not there, there are 3 or 4 other people who are already aware of the situation and can step right in and take over. And then that's kind of what we need to do in our situation is, that communication piece where we're all on the same page. And if I'm gone, then someone else can step in and take over right without missing a step. And I think county manager alluded to that with whether it's a web page or a shared document or however we can do that. It's just communication to me is the bottom line.
I agree.
So if that makes sense, commissioners, staff and I will get together and kind of brainstorm how to make this work, and then we'll come back to the next work session and just brief you on where we are and get your feedback on whether that's the best approach. So.
And moving forward into our strategic plan, I have a thought or a request is as we develop what's going to be the top of the pile of what we are going to be addressing, is it possible to develop coordinated talking points or coordinated information with each, I'll use childcare as an example, to just have a childcare, I don't even know if it would be a tab on our website, but that just has what is happening currently. And then just kind of keep that as a rolling current event. Management of septic, what is happening currently, and just keep that as, that way, when or if we're asked a question, like if I'm asked a question about transportation safety improvements, I may not have enough time to text Commissioner Thompson and ask her what is going on in transportation safety improvements. It would be nice to just be able to go to the website, click a tab and be like, this is what is happening in this forum. And then that way we are all talking from the same page and not, 6 months ago what was happening, but it's what is currently happening. And I don't even know if that's possible. PJ, is that possible? I'm just creating more work. I'm sorry.
I will be honest, there were some challenges.
I know.
With that.
I know.
But certainly I think that as a goal, and certainly for those topics that we know there's a lot of interest on, I think certainly we can do more. It isn't unlike kind of the housing dashboard where you can see where the housing development has been and where it is being planned. But yeah, there are things that I think we need to have a landing spot with an update on, because it's just not clear, because we are working on a bunch of things. And so I think there are things that we can certainly provide.
Or just like a timeline.
It won't be totally sufficient, but
No, but it would be enough for us to at least sound like I know what I'm talking about, because none of us can be masters of everything. We're masters of our niche. And so being able to then use information so that we all can at least speak intelligently on topics that, you know.
And if, for me, there's always a pitfall in that. And looking for the right balance point. Because we want to have enough information to be able to respond appropriately and intelligently. We don't want to have so much information that we are flooded and overloaded. And it all becomes just too much to deal with for us or anybody else. So PJ's been excellent and her team at finding that balance point so that we have, sometimes she's perilously close to, you know, reaching my particular saturation point, because she gives us a lot to remember. We're asking for more, but I'd rather stretch to deal with more than miss something significant. So I would say staff is still on the right side of that line, but because we are limited, everybody's limited to time and energy and focus. To be sensitive and to do what I think of as adaptive management, to use that term, so that we can check and see how it's going. And if we're loading too much on staff, or if we're not getting enough information, or if it's not working well and we see that there could be improvements, I'd just like us to think about adapting as called for.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. Okay, that's good. Good discussion.
I guess I have one more addition to make. This, in all of my time in working in government for the last 50 years, I've never been in a government entity that operates the way this county does. The elected officials, I've never been an elected official before, and the elected officials I've worked for, I've always had different relationships, either directly and mostly directly. And one of my frustrations in this job has been that, first of all, I came in here, but thinking I was going to be a part-time commissioner because I had a very good consulting planning practice going, and I haven't filled a single hour in 5 years. And one of my frustrations has been a lack of staff, a lack of someone who can just do a few things. I mean, I feel like I drive Teresa crazy because I'm constantly asking her to teach me something about my computer or my cell phone, or because I have 12 appointments to make with people and I don't know how to do it efficiently. So that's been a real frustration for me. The other frustration that I think I'm getting much better at, though, is never ever to go directly to a staff person other than Don. And it's really hard because I think to myself, I just need a question answered, and Don's in a meeting, and all I have to do is call somebody, and this is not a policy issue, this is an informational issue.
And you actually can,
And
as long as it's a director, it's fine. So.
That's, and we did decide that.
Yeah.
So it's been a learning experience for me. It's thinking that thinking I knew so much about government at all levels.
Well, if I could, Commissioner, I just really want to reinforce that last point is that, you know, since I've been here, you know, my encouragement to the board is to always reach out to any of the directors, because, you know, as you're in meetings, things are happening quickly and you may want to follow up, you know, quickly. And the reality for a county manager too is I don't know everything that is going on. It's impossible. There's that much happening. And so I think reaching out to our great cadre of directors is a great path, and they all know that you might be calling them. And I'm totally comfortable with that. And so I would encourage you as part of your team and a part of what makes you be able to do your job reasonably is to access us. And certainly if there's things that you need that you're not getting, we'd like to know. There may not be a simple answer to how to provide that, Because we are a very leanly staffed county. There's no way, shape that I could argue otherwise, but, you know, and I think that there are some challenges on the horizon that could exacerbate that. And so, I mean, the sad part is we might look right now and say, wow,
Those were the days.
those were the days.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and I don't want to overplay that because, you know, again, we're gonna manage through whatever challenge that there is, but that is true. That's different than my experience too, is we just don't have the same staffing levels. And I think, you know, my goal, and I know Teresa and Jim and many others that are supporting your board, we're willing to do everything we can for you. It's never gonna be enough, but we hope at least take the edge off of your challenges. But there is that limitation. And I do feel that, and we certainly want to do what we can. So, you know, it goes back to what I've always said. This is really kind of a team sport, and so we want your board to function at a really high level because you're at that vital connection with us and so much of what has to happen to make things really work here. And so we want to support you. But it's frustrating when we can't support you at the level that you would like. And I think that support's even more important when we have volunteer board members, you know, and so I just want to acknowledge that, yes, and we will continue to try to navigate that the best that we can. So, but we do acknowledge that that is a need. So,
I mean, I've even, when we have talked about different changes, for instance, I remember in one of our strategic planning sessions, Commissioner Thompson raised the issue that I don't think got any support, was that should we be looking at restructuring the board, or should we be looking at, I can't remember the words you used, Leanne, but it was, and I think but nobody else supported it. And I think, sometimes with our strategic planning thing, one of the things that has been a little frustrating to me is that we've done so much. Having been someone who has done a lot of strategic planning, I don't think we have done enough talking about how we allocated our votes. Because I mean, I think that when you talked about what you were proposing, I said, yeah, or at least part of that. And it's just like saying now, I have wondered in the budget process if it was possible for us to be able to say, could we hire a personal assistant? Could we have a few $1,000s a year to really have a personal assistant who,
Here's my sticker.
yeah. Do you see what I mean? Because I've realized though, you're the boss. I mean, you are the paid manager of this enterprise. But at the same time, I feel that I can't ask you or your staff to do some of the things that I feel need to happen. And so I can remember, I think I talked to Anthony one time about, would it be legal for me to actually pay somebody out of my own money? No, it wasn't. It wasn't you. And the answer was no. But because it's frustrating to me. I mean, I just wish I had somebody who could be more energetic about responding to email. And I get phone calls, and anyway,
yeah.
That's a part of that. How can we work better?
Well, and again, I think it's like all things that, I mean, if the board has needs that you are in agreement of, then we just have to look at those needs as juxtaposed with all the other needs of the county and decide what the priorities are for the board. And that's not a county manager, issue. That's really a board issue with the budget process. But, I mean, I will say that in all my years doing this, it's not an uncommon question. And I think every every staff, and I know I came from an organization that had a similar structure. We had part-time board members, but they were paid, but they were part-time, and then we had one full-time chair. And none of them had staff. And so there was no dedicated staff for any of the board members. The only thing that was different was that we had just more staff, but they weren't providing like individual support for the board for scheduling. That didn't exist in the 30 years that I was over at Rockland County. And so, you know, it has changed now, but that's not the way that it was there. And as a result, though, I mean, they prioritize that over a lot of other things. And so, but there's always opportunity cost. And I think where the county is right now is we're just happen to be in the vortex of many, many fundamental challenges that are going to determine what this community looks like and feels like. And so, you know, I'm pretty conservative about finances because I always look at the organization over a continuum. I don't want to lay people off and start programs and then stop programs and start programs and stop programs. I mean, that's not good for government. It's not good for employees. It's not good for public trust. So I think that part of what I would like to know is what are these things that you could use help with, and then staff can figure out, okay, is that something we can do with our current staff? And if not, what would it take for us to support that level of support? And then we just need an agreement from the board that you'd like us to kind of pursue that. But there would be, I mean, we're not in a budgeting situation. As you know, we've been in a deficit spending the last couple of years. So at some point, I don't think we'll be in a deficit spending this year. In fact, you know, it's too early to tell. I'm early in December, but there's just a lot. There's a lot of things. And so I do hear you, and I certainly, I think that there are things we can do. So if every board member would, I mean, I have talked to Commissioner Thompson. If there are other board members that have some specific needs, let me know, and we'll figure out if there is anything we can do with our current staff, and then circle back with the whole board and have that conversation. So,
Well, if I can just piggyback a little bit, because I know you said, well, that's our role. And I think you see our role more conservatively than I do. And I don't mean that politically, but yeah, because I'm out there looking for access to money to bring back home. I'm looking for economic development opportunities, which means I want to be in the relationships. So I get at the table so I can help allocate money to Clatsop County. I can do that now to an extent regionally and at the state. I'm not going to the Western Interstate region. I'm not going to NACO, but that's where the lobbying, and it's a competitive environment. And so neighboring counties go, oh, too bad, Clatsop County, you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And so there's that trade-off because there's no certainty of the return on the investment. I don't know what we can do, but I'd like us to contemplate. I'd like you to trust me and open your mind a little bit to the possibility that maybe if we did make that investment and consider that, because I can't promise anything. I know from my past experience that there are theoretically possibilities. I know other counties get that money. I want us to get that. I want us to be competitive in looking for how do we bring more resources here to offset what we're losing and just to come out ahead.
I think that's one reason I'm excited about CFM advocates and having them as lobbyists, and I think they can be very effective for us. I think it's an upgrade myself, but so this is something that I think we're making an investment in to have more of a presence to be able to secure more funding.
As long as they use us elected public officials or resonate with other elected public officials as a category, because they understand if we don't do our job, we don't keep our job because we have to get voted in by our voters. So they want us to work hard. They want us to do right as they see it. And that varies according to the constituencies, but they all like it if we can bring money home to give them more of the services they want to have. So Well,
I agree.
Could-
Yeah,
Are we
sure.
out of town?
Well, we're 45 minutes into a 20-minute conversation,
And
so,
we,
Oh.
you got, take whatever, I mean, it's up to your
Yeah.
board on how much time.
but go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I really want to reinforce what Commissioner Thompson is saying. Our new folks will only be as good as we are. They will only be as good as we are at feeding them what our priorities are. And priorities are not something that we can do once a year. Sometimes the priority is something you have to do in 48 hours because one of our legislators has, I've just heard that they've that they've just introduced a piece of legislation that we really need to hear about. And so we do need, we have the response, especially, I mean, for 30 years, I've been watching our bicameral legislature by crazy long session, short session, but a 2-year budget. So we all know how this works. That right now, the work is really being done in the legislature right now. It's happening right now. And it's gonna move really fast once the deadline for introducing legislation happens. So we've got to be on that like daily. Somebody's gotta be feeding us, those sorts of things. And, one of the things that too, I just think that we have to, maybe even prior to the session, we need to maybe each step forward and say, I'm available to go to this committee hearing. I have been in this position for 5 years now, and I have never been asked to appear in the legislature. When I worked for the mayor of Portland, I was practically living in Salem during this session. I'm frustrated. AOC's never called, nobody, it's crazy. It's really crazy. And, so I couldn't agree more with Commissioner Thompson. One of the things that sitting on these multi-county committees has made me sensitive to is that a lot of times, it's not like, I'll give you that example. When I was at the Work Systems Inc. thing, we have a community college that's falling apart and failing. Nobody has ever asked me. They got a lot of money from Work Systems, and the money that flows through them. Nobody's ever come to me and said, nobody from the college has ever called me and said, can you help us out? I know that Don is talking to them, but I just think we've got to begin to step forward and take some of these liaison responsibilities a little bit more seriously. And be available. Say, yeah, I can be there. We're close. We were talking in Eugene about the fact that our 4 cohorts from, Eastern Oregon, they can't be there overnight. I can. I can get up at 5 in the morning and be in Salem at 7. 8. Depending on the weather, like this week, depending on the weather. But anyway, so I would encourage us to kind of have a more, Courtney has been wonderful about these meetings with the FTLAC people. I mean, it's been huge. You guys have been meeting like once a week at least.
No, I've been in four meetings already this week.
Yeah, see, and it's only Wednesday.
It's only Wednesday. It's fine. I don't need lunch.
well,
Yes, you do.
but I said, is there any way to pay Commissioner Banks? No, not legally. But what that means is you have essentially an unpaid job that's essential for the well-being of people in this county. And that's troubling to me. Well, it's
It's good discussion.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
This is
Appreciate everybody's comment.
Yeah.
Appreciate what the county manager iterated as well. And communication is key. I'm certainly looking ahead to when we do get CFM advocates on board. I know they had talks with me when we were all sitting at, we're gonna need you down there sometime. So there's gonna be opportunities for all of us at some point along the way.
Well,
Well,
that's just an opportunity. I'm sorry.
Man, that's why I've been working all this time to become a policy co-chair, because the policy co-chairs get first dibs on testifying for AOC. So it's taken me all of these years, and I've pinch hit a few times, because I've been in the area and I happen to know people, but That's where the credibility comes, that's where the money starts to come in, is when we get the credibility of that public appearance. So I hope they help us do that, and there are other avenues, but this is a competitive environment. We have to have good relationships with our colleagues, and it's competitive. So how do we compete effectively? By being our best collaborative self and get in there and get what we need for our county. Because they're trying to do the same thing.
Everybody is. They're
Yeah.
paid a lot of money and they're all full time.
Could I just say that I absolutely loved the legislative updates we got the last round, where you could click the link and sign up for your testimony, and it gave you a schedule of is testimony available, gave you a due date. So I don't know if you developed that, but could we keep that coming this next round? Because it worked really well for me, and I was able to just log in once a day. It was low workload. And it was handy because I didn't have to leave my email. I just clicked the link and it took me where I needed to go. So thank you for that. I just would
And
like
if
that.
you
Well done.
text us. Because I got it, like, there are a lot of emails coming in. So if you could text us, alert, there's a legislative opportunity or a legislative issue, then what that does is trigger my attention in that particular direction. Because my daughter made me promise I wouldn't read them on the road, but I can listen to text.
Agreed. Well done, Amanda. Are we ready to move on to our next item, which is
Do we have enough time?
strategic planning work session number 2, on page 7. And over to our strategic planning guru and legislative guru, Amanda Reckenshaw.
Whoa.
Amanda Rockenchuck, Management Policy Analyst for the county. Thank you for having me here this evening to talk about strategic planning priorities, and we're going to be narrowing our list today. Casey, can you go to the 4th slide? So we'll go ahead and talk about just our goals, and then we can jump right into the activity. So by the end of the activity today, we're hoping to determine next fiscal year strategic plan priorities, so what we're going to be moving forward with in the discussion, and then identifying which tier that would fall under for each priority, so tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. There's also a bullet point on here. I'm not sure if we're going to get to it, but a preliminary discussion of possible actions. So on Friday, you'll be receiving a survey about possible actions for each of the priorities, and we realize that that timeframe isn't enough to talk about each priority, but the preliminary discussion would be to prepare you for the survey. So let's say there's certain priorities where it might not be clear what an appropriate action would be, and you want to kind of have a little bit more conversation about that before the survey. So hopefully we'll be able to get through this activity and have a little bit of time at the end if there's any kind of priorities you want to highlight and kind of dive into just a little bit. To prepare you for that feedback.
The other option, since we're gonna be short on time, is that once we can get your board's feedback on what are the ones that you think are the most important and the ones we want to spend time on, there's obviously, paths underneath those, which are where the conversation needs to really be. And so if we can get through that, we may not have time to get those actual projects identified. So we'll have to schedule some more time. Again, I'm fine with that. The first conversation was important, so, but we'll be flexible, whatever works for the board, but we're just trying to narrow it down so that we can then have that more focused conversation about what are the actual tasks, projects that you'd like us to get done. So,
Yeah.
So for easy reference throughout the discussion, I provided, you have a copy of the list. These are the same, the bullet points on that list are the same as the priorities that are up here. And then a copy of the current strategic plan in case you were wanting to look at what we're currently working on and kind of context of what is ahead. So this is going to be really similar to the sticker exercise. Instead we're using these pocket charts and you have clothespins. With the sticker exercise, it was kind of a vote one and done, because it was on paper and a sticker, but here this gives us the opportunity to have a few rounds. So this first round, it's the same as one sticker, one vote, or one clothespin, one vote, and then not voting for more than one priority. But you have 10 clothespins to vote on, 10 priorities, and it would just be sticking the clothespin on the side right here to indicate which of the 10. And so there's a likelihood that not all of the priorities are gonna have a clothespin at the end. And so this first round of the discussion is just considering this list and is it feasible? Do we wanna narrow it more? The following two rounds will be focused on the tiers. Okay, what do we want? Tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. So I would just challenge you that after this first round and then the discussion starts, if you hear yourself saying, oh, I think this should be tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, we'll get to that. But this is more of, is this list feasible? Do we need to add anything? Do we want to narrow it? But before we get started with the round, were there any that any commissioners felt needed to be added to this list and considered as part of this activity?
I'm sure I've seen this. So
This is the same list that we went off of on the last work session with the blue text is what was added based on the discussion from the last.
this should not be.
Yes, those are the same.
Yep. Okay, I'm ready. Are you ready? Oh.
You may begin.
Okay.
Something that can do Commissioner Kayaba call to do this.
Commissioner Toyoka, I'm gonna give you a call if you wanna put your clothespins somewhere. I'll give you a call.
Okay, you can call me, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Stay on the list, it's really like one place. Well,
Hey, Kirsten, how are you doing? I'm doing good. Besides, since you're not here in the room. So, do you have a list of what the priorities were? Yep, okay.
This is my blocking you.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Then I have to remember.
Yeah, there's some certain ones that were all pretty definitely there again.
Yeah.
Do that one. Okay.
Oh, you're fine. So you have. But I.
Well,
Yeah. Go on.
I think that probably part of the one.
Thank you.
You want one on the look for.
Right.
They're still gonna. Yeah, because we still have. Housing policy, recommendation, that we go forward.
I just,
I just wanted to point that out.
no, thank you, because what I don't understand, I mean.
Yeah. It's just,
I can see it down where I'm. Well,
there was one other one that you want.
There's pepperoni. There's less.
Is there? Thank you.
There's protein plus excitement.
I mean, it's definitely just kind of different than the infrastructure. That are really kind of. How we the huge plan out. Meaning. Yeah, this is where we take that we don't have any, this is what we want to do, what we don't want.
So did you get the food you like?
Yeah, yeah. I didn't even, just one piece. Taken.
I'm kidding.
Chicken.
I had pizza the other night.
Yeah, we're.
With my Italian boyfriend, he taught me that.
Well, the also kind of a city infrastructure issue too, if they have the wastewater treatment facility that they need, then they could take that. Okay, well, we're good with that. Ramadan now. I'll put together, so.
To
All right.
think if you would just-
All right, okay, I'll do it. I. He did.
Not at all. I don't think it any other way. Why, I feel good about what we're doing.
I'll use his others and double up on my.
Yeah, yeah. Well, because I have goosebumps when you talk about
Yeah,
that. So
yeah.
It just makes me so happy.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Well, because that's the other thing. I've got a bunch of friends calling me.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to express it. The governance me are not questionable. We can't suddenly, we're not going to suddenly decide that we're not gonna have equitable access. We're not going to suddenly decide that, I'm sorry, this is not a correct planning. Because there are things that we have to do.
And we are gonna do it.
And we're going to do them. And so why are they here? Why is there anything here that we're going to do come hell or high water? And that's not a figment of imagination.
It's not a metaphor, it's a
That's-
reality,
it's
isn't it?
Well, to do an actual access plan, that's something that we don't have right now. And so that would require staff to prioritize that. We don't have a sustainable county operations plan. That would require time for staff, and there's only so much. And so,
And we may be really sorry, I didn't put my clothespin there.
well, and it doesn't mean
Well,
we
I
are
didn't
gonna
put it-
work on it, but what it could mean is that it just takes longer. I mean,
So
so,
a tier 8.
so,
That's the hard part.
and again, these are the things that have been raised by the board before, so we're just representing them so that you can prioritize, so
Right.
this isn't things that staff came up with, so.
This isn't to say that any of these items are not important, right? The
Right.
fact that they're
Important.
here is because you have considered each of these as very valuable to consider in this process. And this process is just looking at, okay, what are these main priorities that resources are gonna be focused towards? Obviously, there's elements of some of these that staff are already gonna be working on, whether or not it's chosen as a priority. But like to Don's point, some of these aren't currently in motion, and so in terms of adopting that as a priority, we're then, and this is why we do this so early on in the process, is because and I know last year the priorities were adopted in May. And so we're working each year to get closer to before the budgeting process. And so the timeline this year is adopting the priorities at the end of February. So then that way the resources can really be shifted and allocated to match the plan that you saw.
And I see this as more of what is, because what is emergent always changes. And so this is more responsive yearly to what is emergent versus, because, I mean, equitable access to county services, we all agree on, like, that's not
Yeah,
a
that's why I
discussion point.
And community engagement.
Yeah, and community, we all agree on that. We've already, discussed it, but it's not as emergent as, say, the FEMA buyout or the workforce development.
Well, I'm already going to 2 community meetings this week in my neighborhood, so there are some places where it's happening, so I didn't mark it, not because I don't care about it, but because I'm already working on it with my time and attention. So I looked at this more about how do we allocate budget, and what there isn't allocated in budget, I'll spend time and effort on. And so that's probably my asterisk for this process, because they all matter. If I can't throw money at it, I'll throw myself at it and bring it up so that there's money to throw at it.
But, if this effort is working toward the budget, which it should be, then that should be, we should be attaching money to it.
Well, I think it's too soon in the process for that. But I hear your point, because ultimately it all comes down to dollars and cents, and what's the line in the line item in the budget, right?
Yeah.
And so when we talk about the commissioner's budget, you talked about Clatsop County is different. I've never been any place where I wasn't part of a budget negotiation for my budget as a member of the governing body. That isn't how it happens in Clatsop County. Okay, all right, well, I'm not gonna, there are only so many things I can take on, so I'm gonna focus on other things and mention it in passing, and maybe we'll get to that point.
Well, that's a timing issue that our annual process does not engage in. It makes me kind of sad. I am accustomed to strategic planning being longer than a 1-year process. And because we do need to be able to know what's on the horizon, especially with the things that we're facing right now.
Well, I wouldn't see this as a 1-year process. These are multi-year issues. It's just that every year we go through and we identify what those range of issues are. Most of them are not 1 year, as you can tell, because
No,
we
that's
haven't,
true.
we
That's
haven't winnowed them down. So I think that's what this is. It's a multi-year look about what it is, and we just do it every year. So the goal is to take certain things off, but it's also to then identify new things that maybe, or it's a reshuffling of the priorities. I think it's also to know that this doesn't encompass the thousands, tens of thousands of things that happen within the organization every year.
That's right.
It's just focusing on some of the significant issues that the board wants to make front and center, and we want to make sure that we are resourcing, or that if it doesn't take any kind of a huge resource, that at least staff and the board are aligned in effort to get something done.
Right.
Whether it's lobbying the state and the federal government, whether it's working with our intergovernmental partners, it's just alignment between board members and between board members and staff and between board members and other entities, just so we all know kind of what those priorities
But
are.
I think there should always be, for all of the things that never rise to the top, the gradient,
Sustainable county operation.
well, no, to me, that's one of the ones that should be usually in governmental strategic planning, you have not always these issues, but under governance, you have you have sustainability. And so you usually do 2 or 3 years, and you put things 3 years out because you want for everybody to say, gee whiz, this is something we need to be doing. If we're not, management of septic right now, I think is a very high priority. Don't know why I didn't put a thing there. But there are other things. I mean, that are multi-year. We can't say, okay, this year we're gonna, try to get sustainable funds for the community college for the following 3 sectors. Because there might be 4 or 5 sectors in coming years, because we can't do it all.
Well, I think the timing on that one is actually pretty good because they're trying to re-envision merge, so trying to make sure that we are focusing on.
Just an idea, and the way I think about strategic planning at the sheriff's office. is we-
sit down.
No. I think about strategic issues and operational issues. So we do a SWOT analysis, strengths and weaknesses for your operational issues. So we know we're not getting childcare right now. When I think about strategic, economic development, that's a long-term threat to our organization, our ability to conduct business as a county, right?
Yeah.
So I would think of these, how I do it. We have strategic issues that we'd be working on long-term, like you're talking about, operational issues that we can address in the shorter term, or issues right now. So I don't know if making 2 lists makes life easier or more difficult, but that's how we try to do it.
Burn it down, let's start over. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I meant to put my on the economic development strategy.
Yeah.
Well, move it over then.
Well, I also think the timing, and this is speaking to something you said years ago, because you said you wanted to have the strategic planning done early enough that they can inform the budget as we're making the budget along. So this is really a response to that we're doing it this time. So,
But that economic, so to the sheriff's point, I look at the stuff that is the most radical in the sense it's most a root cause and can have maximum impact. I look at things like economic development strategic plan, because if we don't have the money from successful businesses, we can look for grants. We need successful businesses to have a tax base, to have jobs, to have programs to implement our public policy. That's always going to be number 1 with me. The second thing I look for is consolidated emergency communication, because I am tired of hearing how our first responders are at risk for their life and their well-being because that's been lacking. And we've been dealing with that forever. How many decades?
Yeah, more than 4 years.
More than 20 years. Holy moly, what's up with that? So, I don't know. I understand what you're saying about the constraints. I'm looking for what arouses, I think, most passion in me, because I'm looking for what's going to make everything else possible. I'm looking for the sequencing of things. If we do this, then we can do that and that and that.
That's just what I'm saying. That's
Okay,
just
good. We're-
that's
we're
exactly
agreed.
what I'm
Okay,
saying.
okay.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, did you do that?
I saw her pen smoking, so you know.
Yeah, and septage, geez Louise, you guys, I can't think of a bigger public health threat than septage if we don't manage it, for crying out loud. So that was part of my logic, and rural broadband, well, frankly, I'm gonna keep saying
You
it.
can't
till it's
use that
done.
use that
one. No, thank you.
Can we reallocate?
11 votes.
No, no, that's the Portland mentality again. No,
You shouldn't have gone to that meeting.
I shouldn't have, should I?
Did you got, yeah, no.
You know, this, I gotta tell you, this is so wonderful that we're doing this. Cause Peter Hudala did the first one way back when, but there wasn't the sustainability of it. So yay, because you're sustaining it, you're building organizational well-being, and from that derives community well-being. Yay, thank you, both of you.
Well, whether it's strategic or operational, definitely seeing some trends up here on the ones that are getting the most support. So is there, what would be the next step?
Yeah, I think the big question here is if you would like to continue moving forward with this list and categorizing it into tiers, or if there's anything that you're wanting to remove. And the big question here is considering feasibility. You know, there's a certain amount of resources and how you're wanting those to be allocated.
So carrying capacity analysis, I mean, I think it's important. But I think right now, I'm more at what I would consider the operational level on that than strategic. So I liked water quality and quantity monitoring, thinking that if we took care of septage and water quality and quantity monitoring, that would address what are for me, and broadband, that would address for me what are the primary carrying capacity analysis issues. That was my logic on that. So it's not that I don't care about it, it's that I headed for the subdivisions of that were more immediate and I thought more manageable. Plus tie gates and levees and dikes. Those were the water issues that I looked at.
See, I think part of my concern about this list is that all three of those things are water. And there's something that those issues are things that right now we do not have staff capacity to do.
Right.
We're already farming out with our comp plan. We're already, and we always have, we've always gone to Crest and people like that. But what this tells me is because to me, those water issues are all related to each other.
Of course.
They're all related.
Yeah.
And so I think what we need to do, to me, the carrying capacity issue is kind of number one. You've got to know what the hell is out there before you can start doing any planning or anything else. A lot of these things are sequential, right? So I guess that's why I'm unhappy with 19 things. I would be happier to have 4 categories of 20 things with a little bit of an element of these are all related to each other. You know, we can't begin to deal with this with our the diking district issue, for instance. This is an issue also of special districts. There is nothing on here that is one of my biggest concerns, which is the funding and the expansion, support of special districts.
So to your point, if I may, I called Senator Weber and said, can you do us a piece of legislation on special districts? He said, yes, I will look to get bipartisan support for a bill to deal with special districts, because I agree with you. But it was beyond, see, when we don't have the wherewithal at the county level, I go up. If we don't have it at the state level, then we go up to the federal level, but to raise it, because I agree with you. And in the meantime, I want to deal with levees, septic, water, all of that, knowing that what we need to do is do that bigger analysis, but we don't have the money for it. And in the meantime, we have to fix the system delivery options. But we're holding that. That's why it's still on that's why I like a bigger list. Because we're doing the immediate, but we're holding on to.
That's what I mean by the time sequence. That's exactly what I mean.
Yeah, we agreed on that.
So I don't disagree with anything that's been said, but I think I focus more on so this, I see this as a budgetary process. And where are we going to be allocating funding? And as a county with very limited budget, I want to be able to funnel my funding towards something that I can actually move the needle There's a lot on this list that is outside of our control. There's also stuff on this list that is within our control. And so when I'm looking to allocate funding from the county level to a county process that will elevate something within our county, that is where I want our money to go. When I look at things like the water quality and quantity monitoring, I don't think we have a professional within our staff that is
We don't.
capable of doing that. So we shouldn't probably allocate funding to that when there is a state a state, department.
They don't,
No, that's the problem.
they don't.
That's the problem.
That's the issue.
That's just the
But
problem.
I guess that's outside, I would say that that is outside of our current purview, because we can't hire somebody to do that right now. In my thought process, we probably shouldn't with our forecasting of budget. And so, yes, it's an issue, recognized, but is that within our control in this next year?
Yes, it is, because we lobby, because we spend money lobby. And so the reason that we need that year 2 and 3 and 4 is that the money, look at the money that has come to us since COVID. I mean, to me, there's a real lesson in here. I mean, I don't want to give a lecture on federal money, but I'm going to. No, I mean, I've been watching the federal budget for 50 years, and it comes and goes dramatically. And in the past 3-4 years, we've gotten much more federal money at the local level than we have since about 1979. And so we've got to always be looking. That's why we have to look so far ahead, because we've got to be able to say, this is what we need the money for. And we're not going to get it this year, because that's not going to happen. But we need to be talking to our legislators and telling them.
But that doesn't cost us money. to
So
talk.
yes, it does.
But if there's.
We have a
way-
lobbyist we pay.
Yeah,
Well,
but
yeah, and that lobbyist is going to do the things that you're discussing. We've already hired that lobbyist. I don't know if we need to filter.
No,
more
but
money at
having
that
Commissioner
lobbyist.
Thompson pick up the phone and call Senator Weber, that's
She's
an
already
action.
being paid her stipend to do that.
Well, all I'm saying is, look, if Amanda can keep it, if I can just try and massage this a little. If we can have a list that, I like my charts, this is for county funding, this is for political action, or this is for public-private partnership, something that allows us more flexibility to expand our capacity that isn't necessarily related to the budget, but still keeps it within our purview. We're still whacking the molds, come on. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Well,
But I think that we need to be talking about that, and that's why you get paid so much money, because you spend all that extra time doing that, and so that's county money.
thank you. I'll take it. So, but do you see what I'm saying? If we expand the way we look at how we respond, so it isn't just what's within our budget, but we're looking at the other ways we have to have impact, because all of those forest wrestling meetings you go to relate to some of this stuff, all these childcare task forces you relate to. Because if we're looking for federal matches, then our participation in those can count as part of the local map. That's what they do in emergency preparedness. So we could do that same thing if we have the capacity to do those grant requests. I think it all works together. It's just finding an adequate way of categorizing stuff so that we see these are the immediate and the county, these are the outside our immediate purview, but we'll try and influence, and these are the ways we'll try and develop public-private partnerships. For me, that's my 1, 2, 3. I don't know if that works for you.
It works for me to the extent that it can still be acknowledged that we do spend money on all of it.
Yeah.
You know, we do spend money.
Yeah, we're supported by the county.
Because we have an interest, we have a
Yeah.
superstructure.
Okay, no one.
Yes, I think I want to understand your feedback.
Uh-oh.
No.
Recorded.
In terms of, so the thing that I proposed, was if we're wanting to move forward with this list, or if there's anything that you wanted to remove. But then what I'm also hearing is that maybe there's a different way that we wanna look at this and categorize this. And so I think that might, if that is the direction, then that might.
So
Be
this,
the board
this
discussion.
process has worked for 3 years. I don't think that we need to break the process and reimagine the process. I get that we all like equitable, all of these topics that we discuss. We're gonna still spend time on them because it's our job. Like when I became a commissioner, my job was to lobby for my community. And I do that aggressively. Commissioner Thompson does it aggressively, Commissioner Webb, Commissioner Quayle. We all do that aggressively. So I think that, I don't want to take time to reimagine a process that has already worked so well with so much proof.
I'm just trying to
Moving
carry it forward a little bit. It's not that we're gonna change this process, we're just gonna we're gonna amend slightly the way it's reported out, that's all. Because the process is
TJ,
working.
no, well, oh, no, she left us, never mind.
More office to get to work.
I heard Amanda trying to respond to me and I wasn't sure if you were saying yes or no, and I want you to say yes.
To what?
Just reporting it out.
Oh.
Carrying it forward.
So the board feels comfortable moving forward with this list.
Yes.
That was the part that I just wanted to make
Yeah.
sure. Okay. So then the next part, if we wanted to continue with this, the next round is looking at tier 1 priorities. And so each of you would use 5 of your clothespins to put what you think should be a tier 1. Again, this is not, that means we're only gonna have 5. This is just to help us look at, okay, where do most of the clothespins fall and what is feasible? And then the next,
Taking 5 away.
right, and then the next round will be.
Right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, but also if you're needing to reposition that, like if you take 5 away, but you realize the 5 that you left, you want to position differently for tier
Reallocate.
1, that's okay. And then the final round, we'll be looking at tier 2, and then ideally what's left will be tier 3.
So my curiosity is, so now we're selecting tier 1. When and I'm gonna use an example, so when I remove my tag off of childcare, it is not an emergent issue anymore. We've got steps in place and things in place that are helping that grow. And then I can come back and put it on tier 2 or tier 3, just so that it remains as a priority this next
Yes.
year and a potential, funding back of our heads, budgetary conversation.
Yes, so this will be,
You
yes,
should be a
this
teacher.
list,
That was
nothing will
good.
happen to this list now, other
That's why I
than
get paid the
figuring
big
out the
bucks.
tiers, if that makes sense.
Okay,
Okay.
So.
cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, either one. Just as long as there's.
Hello.
no,
Lord, my hand just already got up, but is it not correct? Last time we did this, we had, before we put in the tiers, we were able to say that, let's say that economic development strategic plan. Well, some of that, like since we have to deal with HCP and some other issues, or even housing could be a subcategory of that. Correct? Because that, we need to set the parameters for economic development, how we need housing to provide for those new jobs, new support. So that's kind of intertwined. So when we were able to categorize previously, we said, okay, that would be a subcategory of this. And so it could still be a tier 1. However, we could say economic development strategies plan is number 1, with a subcategory of housing is underneath that same tier. Is that still correct, or?
I mean, that's however your board wants to move forward with that. If I'm, and correct me if I'm wrong, what I'm understanding is that it was kind of like the consolidation of a few priorities because it was
Yeah.
recognized that some of them are in alignment with each other.
Right.
So
They're all
that,
intertwined. I mean,
so that can still be part of the discussion if your board is wanting to consolidate, you know, a few of these into one, recognizing that the one priority is reflective of those things.
thank you.
I'm taking
We're taking five,
five away.
so making
leaving-
sure that there's five left, that would be the tier one.
We're taking away that aren't tier one.
You're taking pictures of this.
So you're taking the ones that aren't tier one.
Yeah, they're
So you're-
identifying
you're
with
gonna
their
leave your
vote
five.
or identifying tier one.
So these are 5 that are represented tier one.
Yeah, or if after the discussion, they wanna reallocate what they have as tier.
So Commissioner Torioka, do you want me to remove one of yours? I forgot what the last one on that we put on, but. Or do you want to use one here?
No, I find that how commercial says.
I'm sorry, I have no comment, that's all. I've never heard of strategic planning that went 1 year.
Well, we've done this for 3 years.
I know, and I think it's time for us to change and do it correctly, the way most people do it.
Which one would you like me to remove? Okay, got it. Thank you.
The magic of government is continuous.
Throwing it in my mouth.
And everybody should take a look at the sheriff's office plan, because I think it's really.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great way to approach it. Operational and strategic,
Sheriff's plan.
Yeah.
separation.
I mean,
That's nice.
it's also different, I mean, we're dealing with a whole different issue, but it's the sequence of thinking is very good.
Okay,
So now we are looking at what we would like to move here into tier one. And so I'll open it up to your discussion and move these as directed by the board.
Workforce development and economic development strategies seem very emergent to me right now.
Yeah,
They're basically the same thing. When you do an economic development plan, you do a workforce.
Well, the workforce development would be more education based. The plan would be developing strategies or ideas in order to help further educate our community in directions other than potentially the timber industry.
well, yeah. Okay, we want more money and we want to figure out how to get it. And
okay. So we're selecting, starting with economic development strategies, I see that one having a support of all 5 commissioners, correct? So that would be one we want to move over. I think consolidated, emergency communication, you all know how important that is. Sheriff has spoken how long that is in the making, so I would see those two as one to bring over.
Behavioral health is very important right now in
wait,
our community.
let her move consolidated communication thing. If I get lost. Okay, what name?
Behavioral health practice stabilization, I think is gonna be.
Yeah.
Well, it is important now, but I think it's going to be even more so
Right,
coming up.
right. How many do we get? Well,
This is, I mean, this has 10, but that is up to your board to decide. This is, I mean, the closed are here just to help give an indicator of what you're understanding as the top priorities. So then looking at this, considering, okay, what's feasible for us to have the most focus and then to have.
okay, so when we look at economic development strategic plan, the workforce housing inventory and childcare. Childcare isn't on our list, but we know it has to be there, but on our list is the workforce housing inventory. I think that looks critical to me. What do you think?
So I will still lobby the workforce development as part of our community college, unless part of our economic development strategies plan. Yes, one will talk to the other,
I'm talking
but
about housing.
but if we don't have people with jobs, then,
But you have to know what kinds of jobs you can,
which is why the development strategy plan is up there.
that's right, that's right. And that's why.
The training portion would follow that.
That's
Well,
right.
I think to Commissioner Toyoka's point and to yours, Commissioner Webb, is that these are subcategories of one broad
That's right.
economic development strategy. It does encompass workforce housing and workforce development and most. I mean, if you're looking at it that broad.
That makes sense. The living people do go over there.
So we're looking at the workforce development. This
I
one's
mean, they fit in within.
And the housing.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's interesting, but
yeah.
numerically that works, develop too.
Yeah.
I would say management of septage is an up and coming, probably tier 1 emergent issue, considering we have nowhere to dump our stuff.
In our communities, you bet.
And so in order to alleviate a future very emergent well, it's a current emergent problem.
Yeah.
We should probably throw management of septage in there.
Yeah, yeah. Because if we have that no housing in rural.
Yeah.
Is really,
We can't build anything if we can't dump septage.
well, we can't live in it, we can't dump septic, right?
Yeah.
Again, tie gates, levees, dikes have been on there for a while and they go up and down as far as a priority. The reason I think it's a priority now is I do think there could be funding available this year, but it would take a while to develop the scope of work for a big grant ask. There's flood mitigation through FEMA.
Would the FEMA buyout fit in with that?
Yes,
Well,
yes, it definitely would.
certainly could, it would be impacted if you would.
Kind of dust it up together,
because the
some
dikes-
similar
Yeah.
stuff. About me.
So you're,
But there is funding available for infrastructure, things like tie gates, levees, dikes, but you have a lot of work in order to
who's
get
gonna,
prepared.
who's gonna manage it? Because the diking boards.
Yeah.
We're gonna hire a
She ran
consultant.
away.
Well, but
Well, Justin has taken a real interest in this. In fact,
Yeah.
met him over at the city of Warrenton last week, and I think he's trying to get, a good plan together and how to address issues like this. So I would think this is something that we want to include as a priority, and it's only getting worse.
yeah,
Every year, every flood.
yeah.
And then I guess to the same point, infrastructure, transportation, safety improvement seems to be
Please,
a focus that we need to
Please.
continue to
the legislature wants it,
put on
we're
the right spot.
in it, let's stay on it.
And so I just read something in regards to that. Didn't our staff capacity for ODOT just recently get depleted for the North Coast?
Yeah. Not recently, over the
Did
past,
it get added?
Added back.
did it? Because it got very badly hit 2 or 3 years ago.
Okay, sorry, squirrel. Keep going.
Yeah.
Sorry, squirrel. Keep going.
Thank you. We'll talk about it, but not right now, okay?
Okay, what do people think about where we're at? Do you feel?
I think this is a fabulous tier
I
1.
do too.
And it's probably, well, homelessness, you guys, homelessness matters. Are
It-
we're not the lead agency.
Exactly.
Here's the thing. there are things for which we are not the lead entity and will collaborate and they matter.
Oh, I think homelessness, we are the lead agency.
We're a facilitator, I
mean,
think.
it's
so.
really the city
That's
that
where
we're
we are.
supporting
Yeah.
them, so.
But we're doing.
I mean, we are taking a role just to get things
Well, I think
moving.
we're taking the lead.
But
Taking a baseball bat for the backer.
Commissioner Toyoka, do you have, comments on the tier one priorities? Can you see them?
Then unfortunately, I was able to chat with our county manager and go through my thoughts, but I do believe, some of these things are dovetailed into each other. So I was happy with the tier ones because if it was omitted as tier one, there, like I said, we can bring them up underneath as a subcategory of that. So yes, it's fine.
That's probably enough for tier one.
Mm-hmm.
More than that is cumbersome.
Are we ready to do the tier two?
Let's do it.
Round? All right. So you should have five, one over you, and, what will be left after tier one is, or tier two is assumed as tier three, and then we'll also have an opportunity for you to just kind of look at the three list and make sure that that is what you're. We're taking. I'm micromanaging. There you go. Thank you. Bigger go home. Yes. County manager, is there anybody left without a broadband?
Yeah.
Except you.
Jewel, LC, Vine Maple are the areas that are currently being worked through, so.
We're still working on it. Maybe next.
And again, it's not a county, we're not doing the infrastructure. I would say within 2 years, most of the county, I mean, 95% of the county will have access to broadband.
And we'll hear from those 5%.
Well, then we have to deal with the 5%.
You're all in your district. I'm pretty sure. Oh my goodness.
I'm sorry, I'm just,
I didn't put them all out. I can't decide.
I
so I'm
didn't-
just not doing
I
it.
didn't put any in.
Okay, I played calendar either.
Yeah.
Okay. So it looks like we have 5 that have received votes in tier two.
Yeah.
I feel like
Commissioner Toyoka, did he?
No, he didn't, I tried to call him, but
Oh.
he wasn't.
it speaks.
Yep.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I texted, I couldn't get hold of county manager, so I texted my response to him.
I'm
Okay.
sorry, I tried to call you, Commissioner.
So this is more efficient every time we do it. It's not,
That's the goal.
you know,
I didn't get a text, Commissioner, so. I don't know if you got one.
No, I didn't.
No, good thing broadband expansion was on that list.
I hit send again, so hopefully it worked.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, what? Me to help you?
it's interesting.
Yeah.
Equitable access to county service. You know, That's the squirrel you could taste for a long time.
The thing is, the squirrel will always be tasty. Yeah. I mean,
Well, there you go. That made it even easier.
it speaks. Look at us
Okay,
go.
so we can go ahead and
So is.
identify these five as.
Transform or the highway,
Mhm.
I'm there, so. I mean, have to stay your.
Amen. There's so many times I ask somebody to show their mouth and they can't.
I know, it tickled me.
Mm. It tickled me too. I like that.
It ended yesterday, so.
Hey, they must be a math teacher in disguise. Then she was well trained by her math teacher.
I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure. See. So. I'm glad you're. They're not gone and they're not forgotten.
They're not gone or forgotten.
And we have folded a few into other paths.
Yeah.
High fives all around.
Great.
Yeah. No,
I'm hoping they give you storage in your office for all of this.
You're asking for the impossible. I know.
Right? I hear there's a whole new, a whole new office space potentially opening up over there. This is just a rumor.
For any more feedback, on this list, are you really good about this one?
I feel good about it. I think it's a good process, and I do think that, we identified some good priorities, really. Ones that we've already talked about in the past, but ones, we know need a little more attention now. It's good.
So then the next step along that is we'll go into the specifics within those and say, what are we actually
Yeah.
want to accomplish?
Action
So,
items.
yeah,
And that will be the survey, you said?
well, yeah, the goal is to have a survey, but what we might end up doing is have a conversation through it and then have a survey after
Okay.
that, because I think we need to talk through what somebody's really needs, and something like that. Because there's a lot of options.
Yeah.
Some actions, so.
Okay.
I agree. Well,
Okay.
good.
I feel like it's
Yes,
very
thank you very much, Amanda.
Thank you, Amanda, for doing that.
Up and coming issues.
Yeah. Thanks to everybody else for participating, and we'll take about 15 minutes before we start, 12 minutes. We start a regular meeting.
So can you use this all year long, Amanda?
Okay, we got 6 o'clock. Board of Commissioners as the governing body of Clatsop County, all county service districts for which this body so acts, and as the Clatsop County Local Contract Review Board is now meeting in regular session, all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I want to welcome everybody here this evening. Clerk of the board, can we have the roll call, please?
Chair Quayla,
Here.
Vice Chair Banks.
Here.
Commissioner Toyoka,
Here?
Commissioner Webb.
Here.
Commissioner Thompson. I'm here.
Okay, first item is the agenda approval. We had an opportunity to review the agenda. Anyone have any questions, comments? Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you, sir. I understand that we're trying to consolidate 2 December meetings into one. If we were not, I would like to have extended discussion on items 12, 13, and 16 because we're trying to be efficient and effective with our time. I would just ask that sometime in the next year, when we have more time during our meetings, that we get staff reports on these issues. The OHA is so important to us, and I'd like to hear from our health department director on that. I'd like to hear from Lifeboat Services and help us consider how to do our what do I want to say? Our duty to our citizens, our community members in regard to that. But tonight, I'm happy to accept the consent agenda as it's presented and the rest of the agenda as well. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Any other comment, question? Commissioner Webb.
I would like to support that request from Commissioner Thompson. I think, as with several of our departments, especially in the last few years, when we have been a very active public health authority for the county, that I would like to have much more information about the different aspects of county programs. There's a thing here, there's an amendment to several of our programs that we haven't gotten a report from about how they're doing and how their measurements or performance measures are being weighed. So thank you very much. I would love to have maybe a work session or an agenda item discussing those. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Webb. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve consent calendar.
Second.
Actually,
we're approving the agenda.
I move to approve agenda. Thank you.
Seconding the agenda.
Okay.
We were talking about the consent calendar.
Right.
We were.
Okay. Moved and seconded to approve the agenda. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next is business from the public. This is an opportunity for anyone to give a 2-minute presentation about any item on the agenda, except for public hearings or any topic of county concern that is not on the agenda. Clerk of the board, are there any members of the public signed up to speak remotely?
No, there are not.
Okay. Are there any members of the public signed up to speak in person?
Yes.
Okay. Please wait until you're called on to come forward and give your name and address for the record. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. M. Ang.
Hi, thank you, Council. M. Ang, P.O. Box 12. I want to thank you for being here. I think we can all agree that homelessness is a dire situation. One of my fentanyl-using friends said that he does his drug deals at Lifeboat, no problem from the management there. The homeless women I spoke to on the way to this building said that they don't feel safe to come here and voice their concerns about food poisoning or being called belligerent names by the management of Lifeboat because they might face further retaliation. I have been in communication with the police chief about the sex offender at Lifeboat. That is known to Officer Hansen as well. The sex offender brandished a dildo at me, which was an uncomfortable situation in which I was being sexually harassed by a man now accused of pedophilia. There are numerous sex offenses that are prosecuted as well as unprosecuted. When I regarding the lifeboat scene. When I brought forward concerns about a fentanyl dealer who put his hand around my throat, I was kicked out of Lifeboat. So we're now at day 573 of extreme retaliation. I'm a low-income disabled person. I'm a sexual assault survivor. I've survived very severe violence. And when I can't deliver my medication to my partner with terminal illnesses because Lifeboat prohibits my entry into the facility, they also prohibit entry to paraplegics, people using walkers or assisted devices. And I agree that $1 million definitely would help the homeless, but you can put $1 million into a basement that is damp and dark, but it's still not going to be a safe, fire-safe place for people with disabilities. I really appreciate all the work that's going towards the homeless, but we have numerous thefts. We have numerous bullies in the group, and even people that deal meth say that women are not treated fairly at Lifeboat. By the management, they are called the B word. They're called R-A-T, a rat, to disinhibit them from coming forward. So the women who attend Lifeboat should have the right to speak to authorities, and I want to give you the ongoing investigation of the Bureau of Labor and Industries. I made you a paper copy.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
I do have one gentleman who registered in advance to speak, and he's here.
Okay,
Michael Avila.
Michael? Yeah, if you could sit. And give your name and address for the record. You have 2 minutes.
My name is Michael Avila. I live at 750 Alameda Avenue in Astoria. I'm the pastor of the Astoria First United Methodist Church, where from 2014 to 2023 was home to the Astoria Warming Center. After the Warming Center closed, the leadership of the United Methodist Church and I unanimously voted to enter into partnership with Lifeboat Services. The plan was to expand the work of providing shelter and meals for the unhoused in Astoria by utilizing the open space of the church previously held by the Warming Center for resource contacts relating to Social Security, disability, housing, and health assessment. Additionally, this includes provisions of clothing, housing, shower, and laundry facilities. The work of Lifeboat Services is essential to our community. Their low-barrier shelter, as well as providing meals and other resources, are making an enormous positive difference in Astoria. Lifeboat Services are supported by our community, and we need and want Lifeboat to continue to offer these services, and I appreciate your support of them, and I personally stand with Oz Oric, his board, staff, and the mission of their facility to provide low-barrier shelter and resources for people in need. There are many resources in our community that address various levels of need, but the people who come to my doors, the pastor of the United Methodist Church, have little or no resources and few, if any, options. My hope and prayer are that by supporting the work of Lifeboat Services and its expansion, they will be able to continue to provide assistance not only for the needs of the unhoused, but to the most vulnerable and desperate people in the city of Astoria. We do not want to leave people in the streets subject to the perils of weather, endangering their health, when Lifeboat Services can be truly a first step forward in their lives. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all the business from the public.
Okay. We'll move on from business from the public to the consent calendar. We've all had an opportunity to review the consent calendar. Are we ready for a motion?
I'm ready.
All right.
I move to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar as presented. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. We'll start with commissioner reports and Commissioner Webb.
I'm sorry, I have a couple of things that have been given to commissioners at their place. As we were talking about earlier, this was a convention and conference season. And so I've given you a whole package of things that the Arts Council has produced. I consider the Arts Council a very one of our success stories that we can claim. Commissioner, a former commissioner, Sarah, excuse me, Sarah's last name. Nebeker, thank you. Talked this group into supporting an arts council, which the county has done for the past several years. And they have now filed for 501(c)(3) status and are receiving outside funding as well as some of ours. And they've done a couple of wonderful things. They do an annual summit every year, which this year I attended and was very, very well attended, for people who want to make a living being artists. And they always have wonderful people who can talk to them about grant opportunities and how to run a business that's an arts-based business, and it was a big success. And they also received a grant money, some grant money to do a study of the impact of the arts on Clatsop County. And so I've given you all of that. I've given you the financials and also some of their other material. And I think the numbers are really amazing. We've also been fortunate, I think, with their help. We've got a very ambitious program going on at the Liberty Theater under new staff, and they've been receiving money to be much more. They're at the point now where they're opening their doors many times every week, 52 weeks of the year, which I think is pretty astounding for a little old place like ours. And so I thought you'd enjoy those. I also gave you some information from the I'm sorry, and I don't know now. Yeah. The information for the workforce training conference. Okay, that's okay. I don't need it. That's okay. And this is something that I hope you all will enjoy, because it's just what we were talking about an hour or two ago. This is something that I think more conferences should do, and it's basically a report on what happened at the conference. And I think a lot more conferences are also making available some actual videos of presentations that are happening. I know AOC did a lot of that this year. And I think it's pretty exciting, and I think it really talks about how at the workforce conference, it was commissioners from all 36 states and all of, I think there are 9 workforce boards. And it was just a wonderful opportunity to get to know other people and to find out some of the very exciting things that are going on. Lane County is making tiny houses for the homeless, and they are training teenagers to become to do carpentry and other home building work. Lots of partnerships. One of the things I enjoy about these statewide conferences is that you get to hear about what's going on in other more rural counties in Oregon. Not that Lane County is a rural county, but partly, yeah. But anyway, it's always a great event, and it was a lot of fun, and really learned a lot. One of the biggest takeaways was a report from Josh Lehner, who is one of the senior economists at the OED, and with actually what was I considered to be a very troubling economic report for the future of Oregon. The fact that in-migration has slowed dramatically, our birth rate has gone down significantly, and our population is aging, as we all are here today. So it was interesting. And if you go to the Oregon Economic Development Department website, his findings are on there. The last thing I have is something that maybe the county manager is actually more qualified to talk about than I am, and that was a recent court decision about the liability of, or maybe Anthony, about the liability that a county or a city, that a local government incurs when someone injures themselves on one of their trails. And in Clatsop County, we have a number of parks and we have a number of trails, and this has some very real implications for us. And I think that one of the things I gave you is part of what our county council put together with this. And he's already talked with our Parks Department, who reported at the Parks and Rec Committee this week, or last week. And so this is something that our staff is on top of, dealing with, and we're hoping that we'll be able to come back once we've got absorbed all this good legal information about what we need to do, because we have a significant number of trails in our county park system, and so we need to be very careful about. We've talked about a number of signage, just other things. So the Parks and Rec Committee, which meets monthly, is working on that. I think that's it.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Webb. And I heard from Commissioner Toyoka that he's having some communication issues, so he's going to defer his report till our next meeting.
Could I just ask?
Sure.
Because I read that our CIS, our insurer, recommended that state and local government close all their trails because there is no longer recreational immunity. Could we allow county council to? He's on it.
It's something we're looking at. I know we're actually gonna meet about it tomorrow with the county manager's office. I just want to point out that it is a very narrow ruling, and it really only applies to trails that go to somewhere else. The decision was made that when somebody's crossing county property on a trail to go to the beach or some other non-county property, that they may not be recreating, they're just transporting themselves across the property, and so the immunity wouldn't apply. So fortunately, I think in our county, most of our trails in our parks, and this is what we've been discussing, stay within the park, and so they're not covered with this court ruling. There's only 1 or 2 trails that travel outside the parks that we are looking at to make sure that we're doing what we can to keep the county, out of legal trouble.
Yeah, thank you for that report, County Council. Okay, Commissioner Banks?
Okay. So my last few weeks have been pretty hectic. The Habitat Conservation Plan discussion is coming to a head, I guess, is the best way to describe it. We had a FTLAC meeting last week where the new modeling case scenarios came out in regards to expected volumes and incomes for counties moving forward for the forest trust land counties. And those models did not portray any improvements for Clatsop County. Clatsop County's models pretty much remain stagnant to the previous projections, which is, I'd say, over a 35% reduction. They fluctuate. A few things that came out of the modeling scenario that I personally find a little frustrating and that I have pointed out. So Federal Services, ODF&W, and the Department of Forestry sat down and developed habitat commitment thresholds. And those aren't thresholds that I'm going to weigh in on or anything. What I'm going to weigh in on is the overcommitment beyond those thresholds that they themselves developed. And that overcommitment equates to about 50,000 acres on the front end of the plan. And that's something that I've been frustrated with from the beginning of the conversation, was how much the plan was front-loaded, so that it's basically overcommitment. And when I did a brief small calculation of what that overcommitment equates to for the state, that equates to about 188 teachers for 70 years, if you look and think of it as in the form of jobs. So just to be very clear, I'm not contesting the threshold of commitment. I'm contesting the overcommitment. And if you want to break it down into number of houses that could be built off of those lands that were overcommitted, it's about 600,000 houses, which is our target. The irony is so sad and strong here. And that's using the Department of Forestry's own SBI data and their own graphing data with the Scribner volume variability data. And so that's the first thing that really jumped out at me in this modeling scenario was the question that's always been asked, is this the best deal that the state of Oregon could get for its people? And the picture that is being displayed is, no, this is not the best deal. They actually gave away way too much. And so it's almost double the amount of habitat needed. And that's heartbreaking for communities like ours who are dependent upon timber dollars for a majority of our social services. There are going to be 6 counties that are going to be heavily impacted by this state ruling if they so choose to sign it into action. The decision is yet to be made. It will not be made in tomorrow's meeting. Tomorrow's meeting is actually the first time that commissioners with the Forest Trust Land Commissioners and the Board of Forestry can actually sit down and have a conversation. We have not sat down in this entire process to have a conversation together. So this will be our first question and answer session. They will also be receiving the modeling from the Department of Forestry. The other thing that popped out to me in the data was that the habitat conservation areas are actually being counted for volume production for our community. It's actually 20% of our volume production. And I don't think that that's right. Well, no, I should rephrase that. I don't think that that is the ethical purpose of a habitat conservation area. I do not believe that you should be producing volume off of a habitat conservation area and then counting on that volume to be distributed financially to the communities of impact. And so the fascinating thing I find about that is it's basically developed a false high in the modeling data when 20% of the volume projections are coming off of habitat. And that's only for the 30 years. And so when you look at this data, you have to look at it with the recognition that this is not a promise from the department or from the state of our harvest levels. This is just modeling data. And so we have no promise moving forward. I think that that is the moral of the story when we look at what was provided to us, is we have no promise moving forward. And when you look at page 9 of the data, it cites that you should not be thinking of the habitat conservation areas as providing volume or providing funding. And I'm paraphrasing. You can read page 9 for yourself. I'm paraphrasing. But I feel like it's an injustice or an untruth. I don't think the department is lying to us, but I do believe that they have provided pictures of numbers, and at first glance you say, oh, well, it's the same as the last time, we're going to be fine. It's not. You have to remove the HCA data from it, the habitat conservation area data from it, and that's 20%. And so then your modeling numbers go to 132 to 152 for the state. And that's over 100 million board feet less than our 10-year average. So that means 2 mills will close in the state of Oregon. And hundreds of jobs will disappear. So tomorrow, will be entering this conversation with the Board of Forestry to, again, speak to the importance of jobs, speak to the importance of our community, speak to the importance of our schools, because our schools will be heavily impacted also, as will the Sheriff's Department, and hope that maybe we can get a companion HCP written and they release some acres for us. Maybe they'll turn the ship around and try again. I think for everyone, so this Board of Commission believes that our county needs an HCP and HCP, but not this one. This one, as the modeling scenario shows, this one has overcommitted abundant acres. And to think of the breadth of that overcommitment in the form of houses or jobs, it's an extremely huge overcommitment. And that, I just don't know how we turn around from that. So, anyhow, I will keep going to my meetings and keep solidifying my talking points and keep advocating for our community. And in January, the Board of Forestry will have a meeting where it is open for public comment, and I encourage anybody who cares about the social services of our community, or cares about the grants that we provide to people, or cares about anything, the quality of our mental health programs and the quality of our emergency response, our fire departments, that you write and say, please rethink the overcommitment, because I think that that is the biggest injustice that has been done to us. So those are my words. I'm sorry.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bangs. I want to commend you for a wonderful op-ed that you wrote in the paper. I think that it really explains in a rational, as did the sheriffs, a real rational argument. I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
And certainly, we will put out the call for others to testify in January.
Yeah, in January.
It makes a big impact to see the community rallying.
Yeah.
But yes, well
And
done.
I would hope that we can get a group message created between now and the January meeting that we can submit as a board. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bangs. Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've attended as many meetings as I could to provide moral support and my admiration and respect and gratitude for Commissioner Bangs' perseverance and brilliance and eloquence on behalf of our economy and our people and our place. As she points out, you're extraordinary, thank you. As she points out, what the State Department of Forestry did was take double the land that they needed to preserve the habitats, and they took the tenderloin, they took the most productive.
They took Jewel.
So when I'm considering the impact on local schools, it's heartbreaking, and law enforcement, and roads, and everything else that the county does. So in order to respond to that and not give in to despair, I go to a lot of meetings, and what I'm looking to do is to help us have a different kind of economy, because I don't know that we can impact the people who want to turn Clatsop County into a park. Understanding that it's important to heal the planet, but we have to care for the people. So Monday, I went to the Oregon Business Plan, Thinking Big, the 21st Annual Oregon Leadership Summit. This was held in Portland at the Moda Center because the price was right. Duncan Weiss, once again, has worked with our elected officials. Senator Wyden was there, Senator Merkley spoke. The mayor of Portland and the Multnomah County Commission chair spoke together. I've got all kinds of notes. I've given a clean copy to the county manager. The emphasis on shared prosperity. I mean, to contrast what you're experiencing, going to the Board of Forestry, and then to go to this meeting talking about shared prosperity. I thought, okay, we've got our job set out for us. So there were elected leaders, including Governor Kotek, including others. There was a partner engagement in industry. They talked about developing consortia. Venkat Raman, the senior director for AI computing at NVIDIA, was there, and he talked to call to your attention. He talked about we need to develop an economy that uses the human capacity that is beyond or different than what AI does. So the day after that, I talked with Colin Cooper, who's our new executive director at Colpac, the regional economic development entity. So I'm only the vice chair of that because I don't have time to be chair, but I talked to him about that. If we can get an IT economy here, whether it's software or AI or what. So I'm reaching out to try and get people interested in coming to Clatsop County. It turns out that Venkat is a ham radio operator and appreciates the Nikolai repeater, so we already have a community of interest there. We're talking as a county board of commissioners about how to share information. This is the kind of information I want to share with you. Elected leaders are there. If we're talking about consortia and we're looking for communities of interest, I'm not quite sure how we do that here, but Commissioner Webb, you're really skilled in this sort of thing, so maybe this is where we can call on your expertise to do that. I'm going to 2 neighborhood meetings this week about neighborhood concerns. One of them tomorrow, I'm only able to attend virtually, is about neighbors' concerns about changed land use requirements that the county is implementing. Well, the county isn't implementing these changed requirements because we're mean people who have a lust for power. Are we? No, we're not. We're not those people. What we are is responses to the governor and the state legislature when they tell us we need housing for people and we need to change the rules by which housing is allowed to be built. But neighbors are concerned. Of course they are. They love their place and they want to protect their neighborhood. So I'll be listening to them and speaking to their concerns. Saturday, there's another neighborhood meeting about resilience and wildfire because we're also dealing with climate change. I've been dealing with climate change a fair amount because I've been active with ODOT, the Oregon Department of Transportation. The ACT chairs, the Area Committee on Transportation, that's the regional entity. And the Northwest ACT is very, very active. So we went over our work plan, we evaluated the ODOT work plan and our own priorities for this area, which go up to ODOT and they go up to the Oregon Transportation Commission. So we're represented in there. We have this lovely work plan and nowhere does it say, and by golly, Highway 101 south of Seaside is going to be flooded and closed and nobody will be able to get through. Now, Tillamook County, they had troubles too, but their troubles made the front page of the Oregonian, so people in Portland understand that. I had to continue to mention that we have every form of compassion for our Tillamook County neighbors. Here's the irony. That part of Miami Foley Road that fell off the cliff, it had happened before, and the federal process to pay for replacement bridge there is so time-consuming that in the 7 years since it happened the first time, they're just now getting the bridge ready to be developed, so it happened again just in time. So you can say Mother Nature has a sense of humor in these things. All I'm saying is, when we're looking at ODOT funding, when we're looking at legislative priorities, it's often metropolitan, Willamette Valley centric. We have issues here, not just with social justice and geographic equity, we have issues with Mother Nature over which we have no control. So if we're going to keep Oregon with one transportation system, with one mental health system, with one public housing, I mean, on and on and on. So that's why we're going to these conferences. That's why we're engaging at the Association of Oregon Counties and talking with our colleagues and other people about what our reality is here so we can keep them apprised of it. I've got a bunch of big picture projects like changing the taxing structure in the state of Oregon that we're going to work on with the with the governance and finance committee, because why not? Because we're thinking it'll be a 3-year project, but we want to start working on it. We're going to look at the information technology systems whereby service providers report mental health efforts and housing efforts, because Amy Baker tells me that workers, caseworkers are leaving by droves because they cannot stand the frustration of the impossibility of both delivering services and reporting those systems with the state's IT structure. So colleagues, we're taking on big gnarly issues on a larger basis to make sure that our regional equity and our needs here in Clatsop County get taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Real quickly, I just wanted to highlight Justin Gibbs, our Emergency Management Director. I appreciated meeting with you in the city of Warrenton this week, talking about levees and dikes and opportunities there. And we were lucky to get Tier 1 for the levees, tide gates in our strategic plan. So you'll have your work cut out for you maybe this year. Thanks again to Terry Hendricks and to the Public Works team and everybody that worked on the net pens to get that advanced. I know that was a big concern for fishermen and for processors. So appreciate everybody that worked on that to advance that and get it to Bergeson Construction. And then lastly, we welcomed Andy Shaw to the NOAA. He's the new executive director of NOAA, and one of his first tasks was a septic issue at one of the seaside properties. So
Very familiar with that
yeah,
issue.
he got it trial by fire. And then also, of course, the Owens Adair is the big issue. There's a discrepancy about the engineering. They're waiting for a building permit. They should have an answer one way or another whether that permit is approved or denied by the end of the month. So that's a big project that's a lot of planning and design and a lot of work that's gone into, but we'll see whether that advances. And that's all I got, County Manager. Oh, Commissioner Banks.
Interject one thing. And I spoke to County Manager about this earlier today. One thing I commonly get hammered on in public meetings is our contingency fund or folks like to say say that again?
You go ahead, Commissioner.
Well, it's just I've had people address it as a nest egg or a piggy bank.
Yeah.
And I looked over across the border to Tillamook County, and when their highway fell into the ocean, I'm not sure where it fell into, it just sunk and disappeared. I was like, well, guys, that's why we have that fund, is because FEMA dollars aren't gonna come through for them in a timely fashion, and they need to fix it now. And so I just wanna say, in a public meeting, hey, guys, that's why we have that fund. There's a little bit of bitterness from being attacked so much about our fund, and you guys, the person that does it shall remain nameless, but putting it out there. So anyhow, good job on us for being fiscally responsible and having a fund just in case our highway falls into the ocean, so.
Which it does about every, week now, but.
Pretty much. Sorry, thank you. There's a little, you triggered something, I had to let it out.
County Manager.
Chair Quayla, members of the board, just real quickly to Commissioner Webb's comment about the recreational immunity case. We will be coming to your board in a work session probably in January, because that's the next time we meet. And we will talk about recreational immunity and some of the specific attributes of this case and how it might impact us. It is a limited case, but, we do want to identify all of the concerns. And then I do want, at the same time, to have Anthony talk a little bit about discretionary immunity too. There's different types of immunity, and those different types of immunity require us to do different things to actually benefit from the immunity. And so we'll just kind of go through that for your boards. So discretionary immunity requires us to do certain things like survey the infrastructure, have a plan for maintenance, and other things. And so we will walk through that just so your board is familiar with how we manage that. I think to Commissioner Bang's point, it is interesting that within my career and within my discipline, managing an organization for the long haul is considered best practice, and it's considered an attribute And certainly, I think the county has benefited from the board's leadership on the financial management of the organization. And everything we've done is prudent, and it is best practice. And it's funny how sometimes other people from other parts of government take that same strength and misunderstand it as something else. And so the reality for the HCP, though, is the same that we've been saying this entire time. Nothing has changed. Our first estimates were a 35% reduction. We're still at there and a little bit worse. And so for the county, it's indisputable what the impacts are. Just for the county itself, it's about $3 million a year. There is no other way. And so the only thing that we have, and what I would say is that it goes up and down. So some years it'll be worse, some years it might be a little bit better. But that instability our reserves would not be sufficient to deal with the instability or through the lost revenue. So we will not have these same reserves going forward. And so I think that there's ongoing conversations, which Commissioner Bangs is part of, about potential legislative fixes, which generally deal with revenue replacement of some shape or form. And I think that would be one of the things that the county needs. But to go back to the conversation during work session about strategic planning, is the other two elements that we asked for, and I think have gotten lost so far in the discussions, is we asked for the state to actually come to Clatsop County and co-produce an economic development plan that included workforce development, that really brings all the parties that oftentimes limit what our options are and sit with us and problem solve with us. Because DSL needs to be at the table with us, DLCD needs to be at the table with us, Business Oregon have to be at the table. What I have learned, and I know to be true, is that if we do this work alone, there will be no way to address the barriers for us getting what we need. And there are some barriers that have to be identified, and it's going to take the state to do things differently and the legislature to approve laws that would allow us to have a future that we can all be secure in. I mean, at the end of the day, we want a secure, safe, sustainable, quality community. And this HCP is going to limit the resources available for the most important institutions in the county, including schools, healthcare, fire districts, other taxing jurisdictions. So I just want us to, to all just remember that what happens here, I mean, the Board of Forestry decision is just the beginning. And we need the state to partner with us now to really decide what the next chapter looks like. And so revenue replacement's one of three things that the county would want the state to help us with. So just want to reiterate that because I think it's important as we go through. And so far, we haven't gotten to those other two elements, which is economic development planning and workforce development planning. So
the governor's office has been very direct in limiting the conversation only to direct payments. And so I think we as a board will need to look at 2025 as launching our own legislative appeals with our new lobbying group and take it in hand ourselves and push for better results for our community in regards to jobs and so on and so forth, because I am being very limited in my capacity to talk about those things with the governor's office. I have a very short leash, yes.
that's all I have, Chair.
Thank you, County Manager, and, sure.
County Manager, when you're talking about this group, I hadn't heard about that. This group that you want to put together to come here, could we include the feds, like the Army Corps of Engineers?
Yeah, I mean,
Because from a water standpoint and from our diking districts, et cetera, they're some of the folks we have to have at the table.
Yeah, I think anybody who is part of the conversation about the regulations that are impacting us, the permitting processes that are impacting us,
Right.
it's just, I mean, it's gonna take a different approach
Mhm.
to really identify the opportunity and identify the barriers to that opportunity, and then actually have a plan to deal with it. What I would see is that off of the plan, there would have to be a legislative strategy,
Absolutely.
a financial strategy, because again, we can plan for ourselves, but I mean, there's just so many things we don't control, and the number of things we don't control seems, at least to me, to be growing every day. And so I just think it's gonna take a different kind of a partnership with the state, because this is a very existential issue for the county, so.
And we brought this to Nate Stice and the Regional Solutions team for the governor's office, and I know that they've had it on their radar, but we haven't convened a meeting of the Regional Solutions team. Would certainly make a lot of sense. I also think we talked a lot about communication and messaging. Well, developing the message for all of us is gonna be really important. How do we boil it down? That it's gonna be, relatable to the general public and raise the visibility of the argument as well, because talk about it amongst ourselves quite a bit, but, unless we can get it through the media and through others about exactly what we're facing, we're not gonna have a lot of success. Commissioner Webb.
Actually, I was chastised, in one of our meetings recently about saying that I had met with, I can't remember, it was the governor's office or one of our legislators, and hadn't reported it. What I can report to you is that, when this whole process of the ACP started, I thought that Commissioner Bangs and I were at opposite ends of the spectrum. And one of the things that she has done so well is to educate a lot of us.
Mm-hmm.
I hope everybody here saw the or the op-ed that she wrote. And I think that the loss of OSU's support for the Elliott Bars, which is heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking, is a very good indicator of why we shouldn't be funding local government and ODF by cutting down trees that we can't make money on. And so we've just come full circle, and I'm so pleased that once again, our legislative representatives are starting to talk about Oregon's tax system. We have a terrible tax system that, I mean, don't get me started on on sales taxes, but that's because I was born on the East Coast. But we really, I think this is a really good indication of how programs evolve over time, and it's just clear that now the clear benefits or harm, let's put it that way, the clear harm that Clatsop County is going to suffer from this HCP is virtually intolerable for us. It's unviable, and we have to be able to talk about other options about funding a lot of our services.
Good to hear, Commissioner Webb. I'm glad to hear that we are united as a board on this.
Absolutely, and the work,
Certainly it impacts.
especially because I certainly don't have the forest expertise Commissioner Bangs does, and I understand so much more when she explains things to us
Absolutely.
about how that happens. And so, thank you. I think it's a great place to land. I mean, it's an uncomfortable place to land, but at least we're very united.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner Webb. Commissioner Banks?
I just, one of the biggest conundrums, though, is we have a very sustainable funding source, our natural resource. So now we need to find a different funding source, and by golly, I do not want it to be our taxpayers. So if somebody can magic out a different funding source out of the ether that is not our taxpayers to support a department that was able to fully support itself up until this point, and to support counties that were able to fully support themselves up until this point, it would be a great idea to share that magical funding source with me. Because right now, in my opinion, money does grow on trees.
Well said, Commissioner Bangs. And we do appreciate all you're doing and wish you the best of luck tomorrow. So we have a number of things on our agenda this evening. Let's move on to the business agenda. First is the Organic Materials Recovery and Bioenergy Feasibility Study, Phase 2 contract with Jacobs Engineering, and Monica Steele, our Assistant County Manager. Monica.
Thank you, Chair, Commissioners. For the record, Monica Steele, Assistant County Manager. So before your board tonight is the contract with Jacobs Engineering for Phase 2 of the anaerobic biodigester study to see if it's feasible to site one of these in Clatsop County. During the 22-23 fiscal year, we contracted with Jacobs Engineering to do a Phase 1 study, and this was funded by Energy Trust of Oregon, as well as Clatsop County ARPA dollars and community stakeholders, both local governments as well as private businesses that helped contribute to those funds. The focus of this is to address the high-strength organic waste that's having impacts on the wastewater treatment plant facilities here in the county. And the county's interest in this is, one, because of the economic development impact for our breweries and seafood processors, but also because it impacts our septic haulers, which right now, because they aren't able to utilize the wastewater treatment plants, are having to take this outside of the county and going to other areas such as Rainier. The Phase 1 study included assessing the available organic material feedstocks, including volumes and seasonality of those, exploring the strategies for organic materials management, providing an alternative analysis, providing siting needs and assessing potential sites, and then also providing a business case analysis and recommended solutions. So this work was completed in November of 2022, and in January of 2023, we provided a report to the community stakeholders based on this. In June, we brought the community stakeholders back together. We had a scope of work to do a Phase 2 of this, to be done by Jacobs as well. And this Phase 2 is to further analyze what the energy results would be in regards to the digestion pilot testing for this feedstock combination. In addition, there would be siting development, potential P3 engagement, assisting the county with potential grant funding, and then we also have an additional task, because one of the things that came out of the community stakeholder meeting specifically for the businesses who would be transporting is what the potential transportation costs would be. So taking their waste from either the seafood processing plant or the breweries and having to transport it to wherever the biodigester would be sited. So the cost of this project would be approximately $248,000. 50% of that is covered again by the grant through the Energy Trust of Oregon, and then the remainder of that would be funded by county ARPA dollars as well as community stakeholders, which we have commitments from the City of Warrenton, the Port of Astoria, and Northwest Natural. The county has also applied for a potential forgivable loan from the Clean Water Revolving Loan Fund. We know that this is a viable project. The application review process was last Friday, December 8th. We won't know, though, whether or not it would be qualify for the forgivable piece until the middle of January. If that's the case, then for the most part, the project would be 100% covered by grant dollars. So at this time, the staff is asking for your board to approve the contract with Jacobs Engineering in the amount of $248,000 and $248,236. And I'm open for any questions.
Thank you, Assistant County Manager. Really appreciate all your work on this. This is exciting to get to this stage. Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you, sir. I'm assuming that this is urgent from the point of view, because what I'm hearing from my neighbors in the southwest part of the county is
we can't get our septage hauled at all.
Yeah, for the septage haulers, there have been further reductions. So they used to be able to take, I believe it was 3,000 gallons outside to the Rainier wastewater treatment plant. That was reduced to 2,000, and now it's been reduced to 1,000. Most of your septage hauling trucks are at least 1,500 gallons, so that means that they can't even offload a full truck of septage. Then in addition to that, Rainier has had some of their own challenges with their treatment plant, and so then trying to find other locations to be able to take the septage to has been a challenge as well.
So follow up, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So when, assuming we approve this, how soon can it be operational?
So this is just, again, to do the phase 2 of the feasibility of the siting of it. Biodigesters are something that are common. There's some in other jurisdictions within the state. This particular feedstock that we have challenges with, the combination of brewery and distillery waste, as well as what's called stick water from the seafood processing plants and septage, is not a combination that has created energy before. And so part of this study would be that pilot testing to see the level of energy that is created, and then further analyzing whether the best alternative energy would be electricity or natural gas. The length of time that this will take is approximately 6 months to get the phase 2 done. Once phase 2 is done, then you're gonna know whether or not it's a viable project, and that part of this work is also that P3 engagement. So you know that your interconnect would either be with Pacific Power or Northwest Natural, and then who will operate the actual biodigester itself. One of the areas that is looking at being sited is at the Warrenton wastewater treatment plant. They are very interested in partnering, co-locating, but the biodigester would be owned and operated by most likely a private entity who would then sell the energy.
If I
And
might,
so, sorry, go ahead.
if I might, Commissioner, I think this is a years away
Yeah.
solution. The most imminent solution would be having our municipal wastewater treatment centers accept septage. And so, which is how it works in other counties. Counties don't generally have wastewater facilities. And so that's usually what the solution is. I mean, in the urban areas, like, you know, sometimes you have large sewerage districts. And so usually that's where septage goes to from the unincorporated areas. Right now, we're just in an unfortunate situation that all of the cities are having their own wastewater capacity issues and balancing issues. And so we are still working with them. It's just their own management of their systems is very complex, and some of them need to be replaced. And that's not a cheap proposition. I think what some of the numbers that the cities have been estimating is in the $20 to $25 million. And so, you know, for cities, that's a big lift. And so there's not I mean, the shortest term solution would be if there was a city that could handle septage. So we're still talking with them, looking at different technologies that might facilitate that. But it's not an imminent solution. So thank you.
I'm grateful for the full explication of it, because you can understand that it's a matter of some urgency to people, and we're doing the best we can. We're making good progress. It's both a visionary and effective system that we're contemplating, and it's going to take a while. So you're working on it.
Yeah, how I would characterize it, Commissioner, is it's a legacy project. It's one that once if we get it done, it'll be a resource for the community for a long time. And so it's a legacy project in that sense, and it would be adding a capacity that doesn't currently exist. And so, but there's just a lot of complexities with these projects, as you know. But we are still talking to our city partners and seeing if there's anything we can do to help facilitate their own processes. So.
All right, thank you, County Manager. Any other comments or questions? Are we ready for the motion?
I move to approve the contract with Jacobs Engineering Company and to conduct phase 2 of an organic materials recovery and bioenergy feasibility study in the amount of $248,236 and authorize the county manager to sign the contract and any amendments.
I'll second that. Moved and seconded to approve the contract with Jacobs Engineering, Inc. to conduct phase 2 of an organic materials recovery and bioenergy feasibility study in the amount of $248,236 and authorize the county manager to sign the contract and any amendments. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much, Monica.
Thank you, and I just want to take an opportunity to introduce our next presenter. He is our new facilities manager, and so Matthew, if you want to come on up. Matthew Gerber, he joined us about a month ago now, and he most recently was in Detroit, but prior to that, he was stationed here in Clatsop County as part of a 20-plus year career with the Coast Guard. And so he has replaced David Diefenbach as our facilities manager, and so he'll be presenting to you this evening. Thank you.
Great, well, wonderful. Yeah, nice to meet you, Matthew. Welcome back to the area, and glad to have you here.
Thank you. Commissioners, the business agenda item I bring before you this evening, Matthew Gerber, County Facility Manager for the record. Sorry about that. The agenda item I bring before you this evening is relining and rehabilitation of sewer line along the north side of our county jail. We recently, as I was brought on with the county, we recently did the south side, and in conjunction with that project, decided to take a look at what the north sewer drainage looked like. And as expected, you all know that the jail project was not a total rebuild. It was kind of a resto mod, so to speak, and that a lot of old bones stuck around, and those old bones in particular are a lot of plumbing and sewer, and so that anyhow, the cast iron along the north side of the jail is deteriorating at a pretty high rate. They've had some drainage backup issues, which were indicated in a video. We found a lot of low spots. The relining on the south side worked fantastic. I don't want to misquote a warranty on the reline, but overall the project would take about a week at best, and probably more like 3 days in order to completely rehabilitate this line, remove all the low spots, and really bring, I guess, old existing infrastructure into a old new kind of, I'm sorry, I'm losing the word there, but you know what I'm saying. We'll get to an old new product. So what I'm asking for in conjunction with that is approval to have Apollo Plumbing, who actually worked at the south end of the jail, have them approved to complete that north end, 150 feet approximately, at the amount of $93,607.75.
Great, yeah, thank you, Matthew. Any questions?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I don't want to embarrass anybody who's in the back of the room, but anybody who's ever bought a property in Oregon knows that one of the things you do is a sewer scope. I mean, really? I mean, was there never a sewer scope done before the jail construction started?
While he's coming to the front, they always say, "Go Ducks." I say, "Go Detroit." We're glad to have Detroit in there.
Oh, that's right.
With the Ducks, Oregon State, come
All
on.
right, go Beavs, go Ducks, but still.
Let's go.
So this was a part of the facility that was going to be remodeled. When we went to bid day and we were significantly over budget, there was a tremendous amount of value engineering done. The sewer lines were functional at that time. And so we were trying to complete the project within budget. We accomplished that, and this is one of those things that we hoped would give us, service for longer than it did. And here we are trying to fix this last thing.
And I just want to add that the county didn't purchase the building, it reverted back to us. And it sat vacant for a number of years prior to us taking it back, and then in the process of us going out to bid and all of that. And so while they left it and everything was working, there was a lot of things that happened.
I understand all that.
Yeah.
I was just probably giving the, giving my favorite county sheriff a little dig, because he did such a fabulous job with every other aspect of building this jail, so.
I tried to look, but my head wouldn't fit down there.
Thank you, Sheriff. Okay, do we have a motion?
Sorry, I just had Pooey situation in my head. Okay. I move to award the Clatsop County Jail Sewer Rehabilitation Contract to Apollo Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. Authorize the county manager to sign the contract in the amount of $93,670.75, and authorize the county manager to sign amendments.
I proudly second that.
And seconded to award the Clatsop County Jail Sewer Rehabilitation Contract to Apollo Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. Authorize the county manager to sign the contract in the amount of $93,670.75, and authorize the county manager to sign amendments. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew.
Thanks.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Next item is public hearing, second reading of ordinance 23-09, Goal 11, exception to expand Arch Cape Sanitary District to Arch Cape Fire Hall, and Planning Manager Julia Decker.
Good evening, Commissioners. Chair Quila. This is the second reading of ordinance 2309, and this would expand the sanitary district's boundary to encompass the Arch Cape Fire Hall. This is your second reading. We have no new information to add. We have had no public comments. We have nothing from DLCD in the way of a comment. Your board has heard all of this. If you have any questions, staff is happy to answer. There's a requested motion on page 370 of your agenda packet. Do you have that? If you have anything for me, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. First, let's have the second reading by title only, County Council.
This is ordinance number 23-09, in the matter of an ordinance adopting amendments to the Arch Cape Sanitary District boundary and the text of Goal 11 of the Clatsop County Comprehensive Plan, and update any maps within the plan as appropriate to expand the district's boundary to include T4N, R10W, Section 19BC, Tax Lot 04000, also known as the Arch Cape Fire Hall, owned by the Cannon Beach Rural Fire Protection District.
Thank you, County Council. Clerk of the Board, are there any members of the public signed up to speak remotely?
No, there are not.
Okay, anyone that signed up to speak in person?
No, there's not.
Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing at this time. Any discussion, or do we have a motion?
I'm ready to move.
Okay,
Mr. Chair, I move to approve ordinance 23-09 and conduct, and approve it, right?
yep, just approve.
Yeah, just approve it. Approve that ordinance.
Second.
Move a second to approve ordinance 23-09. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you very much, Julia. Next item is second reading of ordinance 23-10, Goal 11, exception to expand Arch Cape Sanitary District to include 79876 and 79878 Highway 101, page 373. This is the continuation of a public hearing on ordinance number 23-10. County Council, can we have the second reading by title only?
This is ordinance number 23-10, in the matter of an ordinance adopting amendments to the Arch Cape Sanitary District boundary in the text of Goal 11 of the Clatsop County Comprehensive Plan, and update any maps within the plan as appropriate to expand the district's boundary to include T4N, R10W, Section 19BB, Tax Lot 00300, and Tax Lot 00401.
Thank you, County Council. Ian Sisson, Senior Planner, is there any additional information from staff?
There is not, no. I would echo everything that Julia said for the last ordinance. We don't have any new information from you. No public comments have come in since the first reading. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Ian. Clerk of the Board, are there any members of the public signed up to speak remotely?
No, there are not.
Okay, are there any members of the public signed up to speak in person?
No, there's not.
All right, at this time, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. And do we have a motion?
So, Mr. Chair, what I see here is that we want to move to continue the motion to the January 10th, 2024 meeting. That'll be our second hearing. Is that what we want that motion to say?
We just did the second hearing.
Yeah, I know, that's what I thought. So here's what it says
The
here.
suggested motion is on page
It's,
374.
approve an ordinance 23-10.
374. Okay, wait, I went past it, you all. 'Cause definitely I want to have that done. Ah, here we go. Approve ordinance 23-10. Thank you, sir.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve ordinance 23-10. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much, Ian.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Next is ordinance 24-01, 2023 Law Duct Legislative Amendments, formerly ordinance 23-15, page 377. This is the time set for a public hearing on ordinance number 12-15, and it's ordinance 24-01, 2023 Law Duct Legislative Amendments. Okay, County Council, can we have the first reading by title only?
This is ordinance number 24-01 in the matter of an ordinance adopting amendments to the Clatsop County Land and Water Development and Use Code that address legislative updates pertaining to land use regulations.
Thank you very much, County Council. And we'll go ahead and turn it over to Gail Henriksen, Community Development Director, for the staff report.
All right, thank you, Chair and Board. Again, Gail Henriksen, Community Development Director. Briefly, before I give my presentation, I just wanted to acknowledge Julia Decker. She has been our planning manager since May of 2018, and she has been with the county for over 30 years. Julia is retiring at the end of this year, and I wanted to thank her most wholeheartedly for all of her work and the support that she has given to community development in the county over the past 30 years. So, thank you.
Can't agree more.
All right, so moving on. Ordinance 2401 is our package of 2023 legislative amendments in response to land use legislation that was adopted by the Oregon legislature this year. The three that you are looking at this evening relate to House Bill 2192, which addresses and will change the replacement standards for, or the standards for replacement dwellings and farm and forest uses. House Bill 2898, which will now allow RVs to be used for 5 years as a dwelling if the property has been destroyed by a natural disaster or wildfire. And then Senate Bill 644, which addresses the rural accessory dwelling units. And you'll recall that when we did our amendments earlier this year to allow rural ADUs, it was tied to the wildfire risk map. Senate Bill 644 changes that. We're not tied to the risk map right now, but anybody who does want to do an ADU in our area will be required to put some fire hardening in under the state residential building code. So we are requesting that you conduct your first hearing and continue this to January 10th, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions for our Community Development Director?
Could I just make a
Mr.
comment?
Thompson?
I appreciate that Julia's work has made such a difference and a positive difference in Clatsop County, so thank you personally, Julia. And these issues are of concern to some of my neighbors. You know, there's that meeting tomorrow night. I'll be attending. I appreciate that you've done what the law requires you to do. I assume that there is no flexibility in the way the county is implementing
the state requirements, that we're simply doing what the state has said you will do, you will follow the law. Am I accurate in that?
So Commissioner, if I understand your question correctly, I think, the amendments that are before you this evening are required. They were adopted by the legislature, and we will need to update our codes. Even if we don't update our codes with this particular ordinance to address these 3 issues before you this evening, they would still be effective because that's the state law, and we don't have a choice in it. I think what the meeting tomorrow night will be focusing on, as I understand it, are the housing amendments that staff brought to your board, I believe, back on October 4th of this year.
Okay.
And that was in response to your board's desire to do as much as we can to provide and alleviate some of the pressure from the housing crisis that we're experiencing. At this time, the items that staff proposed to your board on October 4th are not mandated by the state. These would be voluntary actions that your board would choose to take, whether it's all of them, some of them, or none of them. But at this point, they're not mandated. What we are currently mandated now and that we are working on, that also came out of the 2023 legislative session, is that the county will be required to adopt clear and objective standards, which need to be in place by July 1st of 2025. And previously, clear and objective standards is something that was only applied to cities when it came to needed housing. And then it was expanded in 2017 to all types of housing. And then with House Bill 3197 this year, it's going to apply to unincorporated areas, which will include our rural communities of Arch Cape, Napa Swenson, Westport, Miles Crossing, and Jeffers Gardens. So there's a lot of different moving pieces here. And anytime you have a question, I know you will not hesitate to give me a call. So, but I hope that addresses what you were looking for.
It's complicated and people are concerned. They want to be heard. I appreciate your iterating those distinctions for me. I'll try and carry those forward accurately and listen clearly, no matter what.
Yeah, and just also, I know your board has received the invitations, but for the public, and I know our reporter is here today from the Historian, we do have a public information session scheduled on January 16th on the housing amendments, and that will be a hybrid meeting. It will be at 5 p.m., both here in the Boynton building and also via Zoom, and there is a link that is on the county's webpage on our calendar. So.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Gail. If we don't have any other questions, can I go ahead and open the public hearing at this time? I'll open public hearing on ordinance number 12-15 /24-01. Does any commissioner have a conflict of interest to report? Okay. Clerk of the board, are there any members of the public signed up to speak remotely?
No, there are not.
All right. Are there any members of the public signed up to speak in person?
No, there are not.
All right, we'll go ahead then and close the public hearing on ordinance 24-01. And the motion is to continue the matter to the January 10th, 2024 meeting.
I move to continue the matter to January 10th, 2024 meeting.
Second.
Second. Okay, moved and seconded to continue the matter to the January 10th, 2024 meeting. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gail. That concludes our items on the agenda this evening. Does anybody have anything for the good of the order?
Did anyone else notice a theme tonight? Sewage, sanitary, septic.
No.
Throwing it out there.
No.
I'll save my comments. Okay. All righty. We'll go ahead and adjourn. Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you, Chair.